Welcome aboard, friends. You're now tuned into Ben 10 What If. We're super excited to share today's story with you. What if Ben 10 was raised by Batman? If you enjoy what we do here, the best way to support us is by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We read every comment. Ready? Let's go. Chapter 1, The Night That Changed Everything. Rain pounded against the cemetery's grass, turning the ground into mud that sucked at 10-year-old Ben Tennyson's dress shoes. He barely noticed. His eyes fixed on two wooden caskets, slowly lowering into rectangular pits that seemed impossibly small to contain his parents, his entire world. Benjamin. A voice cut through the rainfall, low and respectful. Ben didn't look up. A hand, impossibly large, rested on his shoulder. Your parents spoke of you often. Ben finally glanced up, water streaming down his face, rain or tears, he couldn't tell anymore. A tall man with dark hair and sharp features stood beside him, sheltering him with a massive black umbrella. Ben recognized him from TV and magazines, Bruce Wayne, billionaire guy from Gotham City. You're that rich dude, Ben mumbled, turning back to the graves. The man didn't react to Ben's rudeness. I was your father's second cousin. We weren't close, but family is family. Ben shrugged off the hand. I'm staying with Grandpa Max. Benjamin, your grandfather lives in a motor home. The courts, they don't consider that suitable for raising a child. Then I'll stay with Gwen. His cousin stood on the other side of the cemetery with her parents, their faces pinched with grief and something else, worry. Your aunt and uncle are facing financial difficulties. I've been named your guardian until other arrangements can be made. Ben whirled around, anger finally penetrating the numb fog he'd been living in. So what, I'm just supposed to go live in Gotham with some guy I've never met because you've got money? I don't even know you. Bruce Wayne crouched down, eye level with Ben. His face remained neutral, but something in his eyes, something dark and familiar, made Ben pause. I lost my parents too, Benjamin. I was 8. Ben swallowed hard, looking away. It's just Ben. Ben, then. I'm not trying to replace your parents. But I can provide a safe home while you figure out what comes next. Ben watched as cemetery workers began shoveling dirt onto his parents' caskets. Each thud of soil hitting wood felt like a blow to his chest. He closed his eyes. When do we leave? Wayne Manor loomed against the Gotham skyline like something from a horror movie, all stone towers and gargoyles. The car pulled through massive iron gates that creaked despite appearing new, up a winding driveway lined with perfectly trimmed hedges. Ben pressed his face against the window, backpack clutched to his chest containing the only belongings he'd wanted to bring, his handheld game console, a few comics, and the family photo album. Home sweet home, huh? Ben muttered as the car stopped. An elderly man in a pressed suit opened the car door before Bruce could reach for the handle. Welcome home, Master Bruce. And you must be Master Benjamin. Just Ben, he corrected automatically, sliding out of the car and staring up at the impossibly tall doorway. Very well, Master Ben. I am Alfred Pennyworth. I manage the household affairs for Master Bruce. You have a butler? Ben blinked. Like, a real butler? Bruce's mouth twitched slightly. Alfred is much more than a butler. Indeed, sir. I prefer long-suffering enabler of nocturnal hobbies, Alfred replied dryly. Bruce shot Alfred a look that Ben couldn't interpret, then placed a hand on Ben's shoulder, steering him toward the massive double doors. Let me show you to your room. The manor was even bigger inside, ceilings that stretched forever, hallways that could fit his entire old house, furniture that looked too fancy to actually sit on. Ben followed Bruce up a grand staircase, down a hall, past dozens of closed doors until they stopped at one that looked identical to all the others. This is your room, Bruce said, pushing open the door. Ben stepped inside and froze. The room was massive, with a four-poster bed that could fit 5 of him, a desk with a brand new computer, bookshelves lined with adventure novels, and even a flat-screen TV mounted on the wall. "There's a bathroom through that door," Bruce continued, pointing. "Alfred stocked the dresser with clothes that should fit, but we can get more tomorrow. I'll have him bring up dinner in an hour unless you'd prefer to eat downstairs." Ben dropped his backpack on the bed, feeling small and lost in the enormous space. "Here is fine," he mumbled. Bruce nodded, hovering awkwardly in the doorway. "If you need anything, just press 1 on the intercom by the bed for Alfred, or 2 for me." "You have intercoms?" "The house is large." "Right." Ben sat on the edge of the bed, running his hand over the silky comforter. "Thanks, I guess." Bruce lingered a moment longer, opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, then nodded once and pulled the door closed, leaving Ben alone. Ben flopped backward onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. His throat tightened. This place wasn't home. It was a museum. Too big, too quiet, too empty. "I hate this," he whispered to the ceiling. No one answered. 3 days into living at Wayne Manor, Ben still hadn't unpacked his backpack. He'd barely left the bedroom except to pick at meals Alfred insisted he eat in the dining room, sitting at one end of a table long enough for 20 people while Bruce sat at the other end, usually reading files or typing on his phone. Bruce was always gone by the time Ben woke up and often didn't return until late at night. Alfred explained that running Wayne Enterprises required long hours, but Ben didn't care. He wasn't looking for another dad. He just wanted to go home. On the 4th night, Ben woke at 2 a.m. needing to pee. The bathroom attached to his bedroom was out of toilet paper, and he didn't want to bother Alfred at this hour. He remembered seeing another bathroom down the hall, so he slipped out of bed and padded barefoot across the cold hardwood floor, careful not to make noise. As he passed Bruce's study, he noticed the door slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. Voices drifted out, Bruce's and someone else's, their tone urgent but hushed. Curious, Ben crept closer. "Third break-in this week," a gruff voice that barely sounded like Bruce was saying. "The isotopes they're stealing are building to something bigger." "Perhaps, sir," Alfred's voice replied, "but might I suggest you take a night off? The boy is settling in poorly. I can't afford to. These materials in the wrong hands could." Bruce stopped suddenly. Ben, leaning too hard against the door, tumbled into the study as it swung open. He caught himself on his hands and knees, looking up to find Bruce staring down at him, expression unreadable. "I needed toilet paper," Ben stammered. Bruce's eyes narrowed slightly. On the large computer monitor behind him, Ben glimpsed what looked like police reports and a map of Gotham with red dots scattered across it before Bruce hit a button and the screen went black. "The bathroom is 2 doors down," Bruce said evenly. "Sorry." Ben scrambled to his feet, backing toward the door. "I didn't mean to spy or whatever." Bruce studied him for a long moment. "It's late. You should be sleeping." "So should you," Ben shot back. "Don't you have, companies to run in the morning?" Something flickered across Bruce's face, surprise, maybe. "I manage." Ben fidgeted under Bruce's intense gaze. "I'll just go back to bed." "Good night, Ben." Ben hurried to the bathroom, no longer worried about making noise. Something was off about Bruce Wayne. Why was he looking at police reports in the middle of the night? And why did his voice sound so different when he was talking to Alfred? Returning to his room, Ben tried to sleep but couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. After tossing and turning for an hour, he threw off his covers. If Bruce was hiding something, Ben was going to find out what. He crept back to the study, but it was dark and empty now. Cautiously, Ben stepped inside and switched on a small desk lamp. The computer was off, the desk tidy. Nothing seemed suspicious. Ben was about to leave when he noticed the antique grandfather clock against the wall wasn't keeping the right time. Weird for a house where everything else was perfectly maintained. He approached it, examining the ornate hands and face. On impulse, he pulled at the clock, and to his surprise, it swung outward like a door, revealing a dark passage beyond. "No way," Ben whispered, heart pounding. A secret passage in a mansion, this was straight out of his comics. The passageway led to a stone staircase that spiraled downward. Cool air rushed up from below, carrying an unfamiliar scent, something metallic and earthy. Ben hesitated only briefly before his curiosity won out. He started down the stairs, trailing one hand along the damp stone wall for balance. The staircase seemed to go down forever. Just when Ben thought he might have made a mistake, the path opened up into an enormous cavern that took his breath away. It was a cave, a massive natural cave beneath Wayne Manor, but unlike any cave Ben had ever seen in nature documentaries. This one had steel walkways, platforms, and what looked like millions of dollars worth of technology. Massive computer screens dominated one wall, displaying the same maps and reports Ben had glimpsed earlier. Glass cases contained what looked like equipment and costumes. Ben moved further into the cave, mouth hanging open. In the center of the main platform stood Bruce, back to Ben, but he wasn't wearing his usual fancy suit. Instead, he wore what was unmistakably a Batman costume, minus the cowl, which sat on a table nearby. "Holy crap," Ben gasped before he could stop himself. Bruce whirled around, eyes widening in shock, the first real emotion Ben had seen on the man's face since meeting him. For a moment, they just stared at each other. "You're Batman?" Ben finally blurted. "Like, the actual Batman?" Bruce's expression shifted from surprise to resignation. "Ben, that's why you're always gone at night. And why you're always tired. You're out beating up bad guys." Ben couldn't contain his excitement. "This is the coolest thing ever. My guardian is Batman." "Ben, this isn't, do you have a Batmobile? Can I see it? Is it down here?" "Oh man, wait until I tell Gwen that, you can't tell anyone." Bruce's voice shifted into the deeper, gravelly tone Ben had heard earlier, Batman's voice. "Not your cousin, not your grandfather. No one." Ben's excitement dimmed slightly. "But, this isn't a game, Ben. People's lives depend on Batman's identity remaining secret, including yours now. If anyone knew you were connected to Batman, they'd target you to get to me." Ben swallowed hard. "So, what happens now? Are you gonna make me forget? Do you have, like, a memory eraser or something?" Bruce's severe expression softened slightly. "No. But we need to establish some ground rules. So I can stay. You're not sending me away because I found out your big secret. This is your home now, Ben. Secret or not. Home." The word hung in the air between them. For the first time since arriving at Wayne Manor, Ben felt something other than resentment toward the arrangement. "Master Bruce," Alfred's voice called from the stairs. "It appears our young charge has discovered your extracurricular activities. He found the clock passage, Alfred." Alfred sighed as he joined them on the platform. "I told you that grandfather clock was too obvious. Any child who's read a mystery novel would try it." Bruce shot Alfred a look that might have been annoyance, while Ben grinned, liking Alfred more by the second. "So what's the mission tonight?" Ben asked, gesturing to the computers. "Robberies, right? Some kind of isotopes." Bruce frowned. "You shouldn't be down here at all. It's time for you to go back to bed." "But I want to help." Ben protested. "I could be like your sidekick or something." "Absolutely not. But, this is not up for discussion, Ben. The cave is off limits unless I bring you here, and you are never to go near any of the equipment. Is that clear?" Ben wanted to argue but recognized the steel in Bruce's voice. "Fine," he muttered. "Alfred will escort you back to your room." "I can find my own way, Alfred will escort you," Bruce repeated firmly. "We'll talk more in the morning." Ben reluctantly followed Alfred back toward the staircase, glancing over his shoulder for one last look at the cave, at Batman preparing for patrol. Despite Bruce's harshness, Ben couldn't help the tiny thrill that ran through him. He was living with Batman. How many kids could say that? Ben expected the next morning to be awkward, but he didn't expect to be woken by Alfred at 7 a.m. with the news that Bruce wanted to see him in the garden immediately. Groggily, Ben pulled on jeans and a t-shirt and followed Alfred through the manor to a side door that opened onto a vast, manicured lawn. Bruce stood waiting, dressed in workout clothes rather than his usual suit, or bat suit. "You're up early," Ben yawned. "Don't superheroes need sleep?" "4 hours is sufficient," Bruce replied flatly. "Starting today, you'll be joining me for morning training." Ben blinked. "Training for what?" "Discipline. Self-defense. Physical fitness." I'm not really the sporty type, this isn't optional, Ben." Bruce gestured to the wide lawn. 3 laps to start." Ben stared at him. "You want me to run? Now?" "Now." "But why?" "I'm not going to be your sidekick, you said so yourself." Bruce's expression remained impassive. "Gotham is a dangerous city, even for those not wearing a mask. You need to be prepared." Ben crossed his arms. "What if I don't want to?" "Then you'll be grounded from television and video games for a week." "That's not fair." Bruce shrugged. 3 laps. "Your choice." Ben glared at him for a long moment before throwing up his hands. "Fine. But this is totally child abuse or something." "That would be 4 laps, Master Ben," Alfred interjected from the doorway, a hint of amusement in his voice. Ben shot them both a dirty look and took off running, his movements sloppy and uncoordinated. By the end of the first lap, he was already winded. Bruce didn't comment, just kept pace alongside him effortlessly. By the 3rd lap, Ben was red-faced and gasping. That was torture. Ben panted, hands on his knees. "That was a warm-up," Bruce corrected. "Now we start the real training." What followed was the most grueling hour of Ben's young life. Push-ups, sit-ups, stretches, basic blocking techniques. Bruce was relentless but not cruel, pushing Ben just to his limit but never beyond. By the end, Ben collapsed onto the grass, every muscle screaming. "Same time tomorrow," Bruce said, not even breathing hard. "I hate you," Ben groaned into the grass. Bruce almost smiled. Breakfast in 15 minutes. Training became a daily ritual over the next week. Ben complained constantly but secretly began to enjoy the routine. Bruce rarely talked during these sessions, but when he did, it was to offer precise corrections or, very occasionally, approval. Those rare moments of better or good from Bruce somehow meant more to Ben than the effusive praise his parents had always given freely. At night, Ben tried several times to sneak back into the Batcave but found the entrance locked and his attempts at guessing the combination futile. Bruce was always gone by evening, off doing Batman stuff that Ben was dying to know more about but couldn't ask without admitting he'd been trying to access the cave against orders. Then came the night that changed everything, again. Ben was lying awake in bed, reading comics with a flashlight, when a brilliant streak of light tore across the sky outside his window. He scrambled to the glass just in time to see what looked like a meteor crash somewhere in the woods at the edge of Wayne Manor's grounds. "Whoa," Ben whispered, pressing his face to the window. Where the object had landed, an eerie green glow pulsed among the trees. This was exactly the kind of thing Batman would investigate. But Batman was probably in the city right now, fighting criminals or hanging upside down from gargoyles or whatever he did on patrol. By the time he got back, whatever crashed might be gone. Ben hesitated for only a second before grabbing his sneakers and a hoodie. He had to check it out himself. Sneaking out of the manor proved surprisingly easy. Alfred had retired hours ago, and the security system was sophisticated but focused mainly on keeping people out, not in. Ben slipped through a side door and took off across the lawn toward the woods, following the fading green glow. The night was cool and clear, crickets chirping in the grass. Ben's heart pounded with excitement and nerves as he entered the tree line, using his phone's flashlight to navigate. He'd expected to have to search, but the impact site was obvious, trees knocked down in a path leading to a small crater where something metallic gleamed. Ben approached cautiously, pointing his light into the depression. What he saw wasn't a meteor at all, but a perfectly round metallic sphere about the size of a basketball. As his light touched it, the sphere hissed open, releasing a cloud of vapor. "Awesome," Ben breathed, creeping closer. Inside the sphere lay what looked like a wristwatch, chunky and strange, with an unfamiliar symbol on its face and a band that seemed to glow with the same green light that had guided him here. Who drops a watch from space? Ben wondered aloud, reaching toward it. The sensible part of his brain, the part that had spent a week with Batman, warned him not to touch strange alien technology. But the curious 10-year-old part of his brain was much louder. The moment his fingers brushed the device, it seemed to come alive, leaping from the sphere and clamping itself around his left wrist with a metallic snap. "Hey! Get off!" Ben yelped, shaking his arm frantically. The device held fast, neither too tight nor too loose, as if it had been made specifically for him. The face glowed green, displaying silhouettes of what looked like different creatures. "Come on, come off." Ben tugged at the watch-like object, trying to find a clasp or button. His finger pushed what felt like a control, and the face popped up with a beep, the center silhouette lighting up. "I didn't mean to do that." Panicking slightly, Ben pushed the face back down. Instantly, a sensation like electricity shot through his body. He cried out as his skin crawled and stretched, his entire being seeming to transform at the molecular level. Heat built inside him, growing hotter and hotter until fire erupted from his head and hands. But strangely, it didn't hurt. "I'm on fire!" Ben yelled, waving his arms. "I'm on fire!" He expected to feel pain, to die horribly, but instead, he felt powerful. Looking down at his hands, Ben realized they weren't hands anymore but rocky, magma-like appendages surrounded by living flame. "What's happening to me?" His voice sounded deeper, crackly, like a campfire. A branch snapped behind him, and Ben whirled around to see a startled deer freezing in his fiery glow. The animal bolted, and in his surprise, Ben shot a stream of fire from his palm that ignited a nearby bush. "No, no, no!" Ben waved his hands frantically, which only spread more flames to the surrounding foliage. Within seconds, a circle of trees was burning merrily, the fire spreading quickly through the dry underbrush. "I need to put this out." Ben looked around desperately for water, but finding none, tried stomping on the flames, which only made them stronger, fueled by whatever he had become. The fire grew rapidly, trees crackling as flames climbed their trunks. Smoke billowed skyward. Ben backed away, horrified at what he'd accidentally started. This was bad. Really bad. "Bruce is going to kill me," he moaned. "If I don't burn down the whole forest first." A rustle of movement caught his attention, something large and black dropping from the sky. Cape spreading like wings, Batman landed at the edge of the burning circle, eyes narrowing as they fixed on Ben's fiery form. "Oh crap," Ben muttered. Batman's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of surprise he allowed, before his training took over. "Move away from the fire," he ordered in that gravelly voice. "Batman." "It's me, Ben. I can explain." Batman paused, studying the magma creature before him more carefully. "Ben. I found this watch thing that fell from the sky and it attached to my wrist and then I turned into this." Ben waved his flaming arms frantically. "And now I can't put out the fire I accidentally started." Batman's mind clearly worked at incredible speed, processing the situation in seconds. "We need to contain the fire before it spreads further." He pulled something from his belt and threw it at the largest flames. The capsule burst, releasing foam that immediately began suppressing the blaze. "I've alerted the fire department," Batman continued, throwing more foam capsules. "But we need to get you somewhere safe before they arrive. Can you control your abilities?" "I don't know. I just transformed like 2 minutes ago." "Try concentrating. Focus on containing the fire rather than spreading it." Ben took a deep breath, which felt strange in this new body. He focused on the flames coming from his hands, trying to direct them inward rather than outward. To his surprise, the fire responded, drawing back until it only surrounded his body in a controlled aura. "I did it!" Ben exclaimed. "Good." Now, Batman was cut off by the distant wail of fire engines. "We need to go. Can you move quickly in that form?" Ben took an experimental step forward. His new body was surprisingly agile despite looking like walking magma. "Yeah, I think so. Follow me. And try not to set anything else on fire." Batman led him through the woods by a route that avoided the approaching firefighters, back toward Wayne Manor but not to the main house. Instead, they circled around to what looked like an ordinary rock face until Batman pressed something and a hidden door slid open, another entrance to the Batcave. Inside the massive cave, Alfred waited by the main computer console, eyebrow raising only slightly at the sight of a walking fire creature following Batman. "I see Master Ben has discovered a new hobby," Alfred remarked dryly. "How did you know it was me?" Ben asked, impressed. "Sir, in this household, when something unusual occurs, it's hardly a leap to assume the youngest resident is involved." Batman pulled back his cowl, becoming Bruce Wayne again. "What happened?" he demanded, voice still stern. "From the beginning." Ben explained about seeing the meteor, finding the sphere, and the watch jumping onto his wrist. "And then I turned into this fire guy. It's actually kind of cool now that I'm not panicking." Bruce frowned, examining the symbol on Ben's chest. "We need to figure out what this device is and how to change you back." "Change back?" "But I just started getting the hang of." Ben's protest was cut short as the symbol on his chest began to blink red and beep. "What's happening now?" A flash of red light enveloped him, and suddenly Ben was himself again, normal 10-year-old boy, slightly sooty but otherwise unchanged. The watch device remained on his wrist, its face now red instead of green. "It timed out," Bruce observed, immediately taking Ben's arm to examine the device. "Fascinating. This is clearly technology far beyond anything on Earth." "You mean it's alien?" Ben's eyes widened. "I turned into an alien?" "That appears to be the logical conclusion." Bruce tapped at the watch's face, which remained unresponsive. "The interface is locked or recharging." "Master Bruce," Alfred interjected, "the fire department reports they have the forest fire under control. They're attributing it to the meteor impact." Bruce nodded. "Good. That gives us time to figure this out." He turned back to Ben, his expression deadly serious. "Ben, this device could be incredibly dangerous. Until we understand it fully, you're not to use it again. But, this isn't a toy. If it can transform your DNA into different alien species, the potential for harm is enormous." Ben looked down at the watch, excitement warring with the reasonable caution Bruce was suggesting. "What if I just, no?" Bruce's tone left no room for argument. "We need to approach this methodically. First, we'll run tests to ensure it hasn't harmed you. Then we'll analyze its composition and function. Only when we understand it will we consider experimenting further." Ben wanted to argue but remembered the panic of accidentally starting a forest fire. Maybe Bruce was right. "Okay," he agreed reluctantly. "But you're not taking it off me." Bruce's eyes narrowed slightly. "We may have to if it poses a danger." "It picked me," Ben insisted, protective of the device despite having had it for less than an hour. "It jumped on my wrist by itself. That means it was meant for me." "That's a significant assumption." "Maybe, But I'm not letting you cut my arm off or whatever to get it. The corner of Bruce's mouth twitched in what might have been amusement. That wasn't my first plan. Over the next several hours, Bruce ran every test imaginable on both Ben and the mysterious watch. Blood samples, X-rays, spectral analyses. Ben sat through it all, alternately bored and fascinated as Bruce worked with the precision and focus that made him Batman. The device appears to be encoded to your DNA now, Bruce finally concluded as dawn approached. It's using the watch form as camouflage, but it's actually a sophisticated alien matrix capable of storing and rewriting genetic code. So it turns me into different aliens. That's so cool. 10 different forms, based on the silhouettes displayed in the interface, Bruce agreed, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his caution. Each with distinct abilities. The fire form you accessed appears to be a pyronite species. I'm gonna call him Heat Blast, Ben decided. Bruce raised an eyebrow. What? They need names. It's easier than saying the fire alien or pyro whatever. Your nomenclature is irrelevant. What matters is that the device, the Omnitrix, Ben interrupted. What? That's what I'm calling it. Omni means all or many, and it's like a matrix of aliens, so. Omnitrix. Bruce stared at him for a long moment. The Omnitrix, he conceded, appears to have a built-in safeguard that limits transformations to 10 minutes before automatically reverting you to human form. It then requires time to recharge. How long? Based on the energy readings, approximately 15 to 20 minutes. Ben nodded, already imagining the possibilities. So I could be a superhero like you. I could help people with these powers. Bruce's expression darkened. Absolutely not. The risk is too great. But I have actual superpowers now. You're always telling me Gotham is dangerous, well, now I can protect myself. Power without control is more dangerous than no power at all, Bruce countered. You almost burned down half the estate tonight. I'll learn to control it. You could teach me, like you teach me everything else. Bruce was silent for a long moment, studying Ben with an intensity that would make most grown men uncomfortable. Ben met his gaze, refusing to back down. You should get some sleep, Bruce finally said. We'll continue this discussion after you've rested. Ben wanted to argue further but realized that was probably the best he was going to get from Bruce right now. Fine. But this conversation isn't over. It rarely is with you, Bruce replied, almost sounding amused. Ben slept through most of the following day, exhausted from the night's excitement. When he finally woke in the late afternoon, he immediately checked the Omnitrix, still there, still looking like an oversized watch, its face green again. He tried pressing the buttons like he had the night before, but nothing happened. Figures, he muttered, climbing out of bed. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him he'd missed several meals. He found Alfred in the kitchen, preparing what looked like dinner. Ah, Master Ben. I was beginning to think you might sleep straight through until tomorrow. Sorry. Turning into an alien fire monster takes a lot out of you, Ben replied, hopping onto a stool at the counter. Is Bruce around? Master Bruce is attending to some Wayne Enterprises business in the city. He asked me to inform you that he expects to see you in the cave this evening at 8 o'clock. Ben's eyes lit up. He's going to let me in the Batcave? Indeed. I believe he has prepared some exercises regarding your new acquisition. Alfred nodded toward the Omnitrix. In the meantime, perhaps you'd care for a late lunch? Yes, please. I'm starving. Alfred set a sandwich and fruit in front of Ben, who devoured it in record time. As he ate, Ben couldn't help fidgeting with the Omnitrix, trying different combinations of buttons and twists. I wouldn't advise experimenting without supervision, Master Ben, Alfred warned, noticing his attempts. I'm just trying to figure out how it works, Ben defended. Bruce gets to play with all his bat gadgets whenever he wants. Master Bruce spent years training before he ever put on the cape, Alfred pointed out. Patience is a virtue he had to learn, often the hard way. Ben sighed dramatically. Everyone's always telling kids to be patient. It's totally unfair. Life, I fear, is seldom fair. Alfred's tone softened. However, I believe Master Bruce is taking your situation quite seriously. He was researching extraterrestrial technology throughout the day. Ben perked up. Really? So he is interested in the Omnitrix. He is interested in ensuring your safety, Alfred corrected. The distinction is important. But he might let me use it, right? Like, with supervision or something? Alfred's expression became unreadable, a skill Ben suspected all British butlers learned at butler school. That is for Master Bruce to decide. The hours until 8 o'clock crawled by. Ben tried watching TV, playing video games, even reading, but his mind kept circling back to the Omnitrix and what Bruce might have planned. By 7:45, he couldn't stand it anymore and made his way to the study with the grandfather clock. To his surprise, the passage was unlocked. Ben hesitated only briefly before pushing the clock aside and starting down the long staircase to the Batcave. Bruce was already there, cowl off but otherwise in full Batman gear, working at the main computer console. Multiple screens displayed information about the Omnitrix based on last night's tests, alongside what looked like police reports. "You're early," Bruce noted without turning around. "Couldn't wait," Ben admitted, approaching the console. "Alfred said you were researching alien tech all day?" "Among other things." Bruce gestured to a section of the display showing criminal activity. "Someone broke into a Wayne Tech research facility last night. Third robbery this month targeting specialized electronics." Ben glanced at the police reports with mild interest before his attention returned to the Omnitrix data. "Did you figure anything else out about this thing?" Bruce turned to face him fully. "Some. But before we discuss that, we need to establish rules." Ben groaned. "More rules? Seriously? If you want access to the cave and permission to learn about the Omnitrix, then yes. Rules are non-negotiable." Ben crossed his arms but nodded reluctantly. "Fine. What are they?" Bruce held up one finger. 1. You do not transform without my supervision until I determine you have sufficient control. A second finger. 2. You do not reveal the existence of the Omnitrix to anyone, not your friends, not your cousin, not even Alfred already knows. A third finger. 3. You will train daily, both as yourself and in your transformed states, to ensure you can handle whatever abilities each form possesses. Ben considered these conditions. They were restrictive but not unreasonable. "And if I agree to your rules? Then I'll help you understand and master the Omnitrix," Bruce replied. "Eventually." "Eventually? These things take time, Ben. Proper training, yeah, takes years of discipline and practice," Ben finished for him. "But we don't have years. This thing picked me now for a reason." "That's another assumption." "Maybe. But what if something bad happens and I need to use it? Shouldn't I at least know the basics of all the aliens I can turn into?" Bruce was silent for a moment, considering. "A valid point," he finally conceded. "Which is why I've prepared a controlled testing environment." He pressed a button, and a section of the cave floor slid open, revealing a large training area Ben hadn't noticed before, complete with obstacles, targets, and what looked like fireproof walls. "Whoa," Ben breathed. "You built this overnight?" "I've had similar training areas installed for years. This one has been modified to accommodate potentially destructive alien abilities." Ben grinned. "So I get to try out all 10 aliens?" "Eventually," Bruce repeated. "Today, we start with the one you've already accessed. If, and only if, you demonstrate responsible control will we proceed to the others." It wasn't exactly what Ben wanted, but it was more than he expected from Bruce. "Deal." Bruce nodded once, then gestured to the training area. Let's begin. The next 2 weeks fell into a new routine. Mornings still began with physical training, but afternoons now included sessions in the Batcave where Ben practiced with the Omnitrix under Bruce's watchful eye. They discovered 4 of the alien forms in that time: Heat Blast the Fire Alien, Diamond Head with Crystal Powers, XLR-8 with Super Speed, and Forearms with, well, for arms and super strength. Ben named each form himself, much to Bruce's stoic disapproval, though Alfred seemed quietly amused by the designations. Each alien had distinct abilities that required different approaches to master. Bruce proved to be an excellent, if demanding, teacher, analyzing each form's strengths and weaknesses with scientific precision while developing training regimens specific to their abilities. Your reactions are improving, Bruce noted as Ben, currently transformed into XLR-8, completed an obstacle course in record time. This one's my favorite, Ben replied, his voice higher and faster in this form. The speed is incredible. I could run to California and back before the Omnitrix times out. Which is precisely why discipline is essential, Bruce reminded him. Speed without control is more dangerous than no speed at all, Ben finished, having heard the lecture multiple times now. I know. A beeping from the main console interrupted them. Bruce moved swiftly to the computer, checking the alert. Another break-in? Ben asked, zipping over in a blur to peek at the screen. Bruce nodded grimly. Same MO as the others. Electronics research facility, targeted components stolen, security disabled with precision. Sounds like you could use backup, Ben suggested, trying to sound casual. Bruce shot him a look. We've discussed this. Come on. I've been training non-stop for weeks. I can handle myself now. Training in controlled conditions is not the same as field experience. How am I supposed to get field experience if you never let me in the field? Ben challenged. The Omnitrix chose that moment to time out, red light flashing as he reverted to human form. Perfect timing, he muttered sarcastically. Bruce turned back to the console, pulling up schematics of the targeted facility. This isn't up for debate, Ben. You're not ready. When will I be ready? When I'm 30. When I say you are. Ben threw up his hands in frustration. That's not fair. You gave me all these rules about training and learning control, and I've followed them. I haven't used the Omnitrix without permission, I haven't told anyone about it, I've done everything you asked. And I've kept my end of the bargain, Bruce replied evenly. I've helped you understand and begin to master the device. But crime fighting is different. I thought that was the whole point of all this training. What good are these powers if I can't use them to help people? Bruce turned to face him fully, his expression stern but not unkind. The point was to ensure you wouldn't accidentally harm yourself or others. Becoming a vigilante was never part of our agreement. But you're Batman. You fight bad guys every night. After years of training and preparation. I have superpowers. That has to count for something. Bruce's jaw tightened slightly, the only sign that the argument was affecting him at all. This discussion is over, Ben. I have work to do. He pulled on his cowl, becoming Batman completely. Alfred will be up shortly to escort you back to the manor. You're not to return to the cave tonight. Before Ben could protest further, Batman strode toward the Batmobile, cape sweeping behind him. The vehicle's engine roared to life, and within moments, he was gone, leaving Ben alone in the massive cave. Jerk, Ben muttered, kicking at the floor. I'm not a little kid. I can handle myself. The Omnitrix on his wrist beeped, its face turning green again to indicate it had recharged. Ben looked at it thoughtfully, then at the computer console still displaying information about the break-in. An idea, a very bad idea, began to form in his mind. Sneaking out of Wayne Manor was considerably more difficult at night when Batman was already on patrol. Alfred checked on Ben multiple times, and the security system Bruce had installed specifically to monitor Ben's movements required careful timing to bypass. But Ben had spent 2 weeks learning from the world's greatest detective, and if there was one thing he'd picked up, it was how to pay attention to patterns and find weaknesses in systems. By midnight, he was out of the Manor and making his way toward Gotham City on a borrowed bicycle from the Manor's garage. The electronics facility being targeted tonight was on the outskirts of Gotham, about 5 miles from Wayne Manor. On a normal bike with his normal 10-year-old stamina, it would have been an impossible journey. But Ben had no intention of staying normal. Once safely away from the Manor's security perimeter, he activated the Omnitrix, cycling through the silhouettes until he found XLR-8's distinctive shape. A flash of green light later, and the speedster alien was racing toward Gotham at over 500 miles per hour. "Batman is going to kill me," Ben muttered to himself as buildings blurred past. "But if I help catch these thieves, he'll have to admit I'm ready." The facility was easy to find, Wayne Tech's logo prominently displayed on the main building, police cars already gathered outside with lights flashing. Ben, as XLR-8, came to a stop a safe distance away, assessing the situation. Police had formed the perimeter but weren't entering the building. Through XLR-8's enhanced vision, Ben spotted Batman on a nearby rooftop, also observing. He appeared to be waiting for something. If the thieves are still inside, why isn't he going in? Ben wondered aloud. Unless. The realization hit him, Batman was letting the thieves think they'd gotten away with it, planning to follow them back to whoever was behind all these robberies. It was a trap. And Ben had just raced straight into the middle of it. "Crud," he hissed, ducking behind a dumpster as Batman's gaze swept in his direction. "I need to get out of here before he sees me." But before he could speed away, movement caught his eye, a side door to the facility opening slightly, a dark figure slipping out with what looked like a small case clutched to their chest. The thief moved with incredible stealth, avoiding the police spotlights with practiced ease. From his rooftop perch, Batman tensed, clearly tracking the thief's movements. He was waiting for them to lead him to their base. The thief paused at the edge of the property, pulling out what looked like a communicator. Ben strained to hear with XLR-8's enhanced senses. "Package secured," the thief whispered. "Rendezvous at Point B in 10 minutes. Ben's mind raced faster than even XLR-8's body could move. Batman would follow the thief, but what if there was more than one exit? What if other thieves were still inside with more stolen tech? Batman couldn't be everywhere at once. Without fully thinking through the consequences, Ben made his decision. He'd check the building for more thieves while Batman followed this one. Quick in, quick out, Batman would never even know he was there. Using XLR-8 speed, Ben zipped past the police perimeter in a blur they couldn't track, slipping through the same side door the thief had exited. Inside, emergency lights cast eerie shadows across scientific equipment. The facility specialized in miniaturized electronics, according to the information he'd glimpsed on Batman's computer. Ben moved cautiously through the corridors, checking each room for signs of additional thieves. Most areas seemed untouched, but as he approached a central laboratory, he heard voices. "Hurry up. Shade already left with the primary component. I'm working as fast as I can. These nanoprocessors are delicate." Ben peered around the corner to see 2 more thieves, both dressed in sleek, high-tech suits that seemed to blend with the shadows. One was packing equipment into a case while the other stood guard. This was his chance to prove himself. If he could capture these thieves before Batman even realized there were more, Bruce would have to admit Ben was ready for fieldwork. Ben assessed his options. XLR-8 had speed but not much strength. The Omnitrix still had plenty of time before timing out, but maybe a different form would work better for capture rather than reconnaissance. Ducking back around the corner, Ben touched the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, triggering a transformation. In a flash of green light, XLR-8 was replaced by 4 arms, the massive, 4-armed powerhouse with super strength. The light from the transformation gave away his position immediately. "What was that?" one thief called out, drawing a weapon. So much for the element of surprise, Ben muttered in Forearm's deep voice. Making a quick decision, he charged around the corner, all four arms raised. Surprise! The thieves reacted with surprising calm for people facing a 7-foot-tall red alien. The armed one fired their weapon, not a gun as Ben had expected, but some kind of energy device that shot crackling blue electricity. Ow! Ben roared as the blast hit one of his arms, temporarily numbing it. That hurt. What is that thing? The second thief demanded, abandoning the case to pull out a similar weapon. I'm Forearms, Ben announced, leaping forward and using his 3 functioning limbs to smash the floor between them, creating a shockwave that knocked both thieves off balance. And you're under arrest. Or whatever Batman usually says. The thieves recovered quickly, both firing their weapons now. Ben dodged one blast but caught another in the chest, sending painful tingles through his massive body. Despite the discomfort, Forearm's tough skin prevented any serious damage. Is that the best you've got? Ben taunted, grabbing a nearby lab table and hurling it at his attackers. The thieves dove in opposite directions, displaying combat training that Ben hadn't anticipated. One rolled to a kneeling position and adjusted something on their weapon. The next blast that hit Ben was significantly stronger, making his muscles spasm and driving him to one knee. Okay, that's better, he grunted, fighting through the pain. The second thief was trying to escape with the case. Ben pushed through the numbing effect of the weapon and lunged forward, grabbing the fleeing thief with 2 arms while using a third to block another blast from the armed one. Gotcha! Ben declared triumphantly, lifting the thief off the ground. The case fell, spilling delicate-looking components across the floor. No, both thieves cried in unison. The armed thief adjusted their weapon to maximum power and fired directly at Ben's face. Unable to dodge while holding the other thief, Ben took the blast full force. Pain exploded behind his eyes, and his grip involuntarily loosened. The captured thief broke free, scrambling to gather the scattered components. Ben staggered, temporarily blinded and disoriented from the blast. Finish him and let's go, one thief called to the other. Ben braced for another attack, but instead heard a familiar sound, the whistle of a batarang cutting through air, followed by a clang as it knocked the weapon from the thief's hand. Batman, one thief gasped. A shadow dropped from the ceiling, Batman, his cape spread wide, landing between Ben and the thieves. Run, the unarmed thief shouted. Both bolted for different exits. Batman moved with practiced efficiency, throwing a bola that wrapped around the legs of one thief, sending them crashing to the ground. The other made it out a side door. As Ben's vision cleared, Batman turned to face him, his expression unreadable behind the cowl but his displeasure evident in every line of his body. Hey, Batman, Ben offered weakly. Fancy meeting you here. What are you doing here? Batman demanded, voice low and dangerous. Helping. I caught them stealing more stuff after the first guy left. You directly disobeyed my orders and compromised an operation I've been working on for weeks. Ben's 4 arms dropped to his sides. But the thief I was following detected your presence and aborted the rendezvous. My tracking device showed them heading back to warn their employer before they went dark. I didn't mean to, and now one of them has escaped with components that, combined with the previously stolen materials, could be used to create a device capable of hacking any electronic system in Gotham. Ben felt his confidence crumbling. He'd messed up. Badly. The captured thief groaned, regaining consciousness from where they'd hit their head in the fall. Batman crossed to them, hauling them up by their collar. Who are you working for? He growled. The thief laughed nervously. You think I'd tell you? They'd kill me. I'll turn you over to the police, then, Batman replied, securing the thief's hands with zip ties. Wait. Ben interjected. Let me help fix this. I can chase down the one that got away, I'm faster than you. Batman's glare could have melted steel. You've done enough. Go home. Now. But, now. The word held such authority that Ben knew further argument was futile. With a defeated sigh, Ben touched the Omnitrix symbol again, switching back to XLR-8. Without another word, he sped out of the building, racing through the night back toward Wayne Manor. Ben made it back to his room just as the Omnitrix timed out, collapsing onto his bed still fully dressed. His body ached from the electrical blasts, but the pain was nothing compared to the weight of his failure. He'd tried to prove himself ready and had instead proven Bruce right. He wasn't prepared for real crime fighting. Worse, he'd ruined Batman's carefully laid plans and let a criminal escape with dangerous technology. Stupid, 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 Ben muttered, punching his pillow repeatedly. He must have fallen asleep at some point, because the next thing he knew, morning light was streaming through his window and Alfred was knocking at his door. "Master Ben, your presence is requested in the study immediately." Ben winced. "Here it comes, the lecture to end all lectures." "Coming, Alfred." He shuffled down the hallway like a man approaching the gallows, pausing outside the study door to take a deep breath before knocking. "Enter." Bruce's voice was neutral, somehow more terrifying than if he'd sounded angry. Ben pushed open the door to find Bruce sitting behind his desk, looking exhausted but perfectly composed in a crisp suit. No sign of the night's activities except for the faint shadow of a bruise on his jawline. "Close the door," Bruce instructed. Ben obeyed, then stood awkwardly in the middle of the room, unable to meet Bruce's gaze. "Do you understand what happened last night?" Bruce asked after a long silence. Ben nodded miserably. "I messed up." "Explain how." "I disobeyed your orders. I interfered with your stakeout. I let a criminal get away with dangerous tech. Ben swallowed hard. "I wasn't ready, just like you said." Bruce leaned forward slightly. "And yet, despite all that, you did something right." Ben's head snapped up in surprise. "I did." "You identified a secondary team of thieves that I had missed," Bruce acknowledged. "In my focus on following the primary thief, I failed to consider they might have separated the team to extract multiple components simultaneously." "Oh." Ben blinked, not expecting even this small bit of praise. "So, you're not completely mad." "I'm extremely disappointed in your disobedience and recklessness," Bruce corrected firmly. "But I recognize that your intentions were good." Ben dropped his gaze again. "I just wanted to help. To show you I could handle it. And instead, you demonstrated precisely why you're not ready. You acted impulsively, without fully assessing the situation or considering the consequences." "I know," Ben admitted quietly. "I'm sorry." Bruce was silent for a moment, studying him. "The thief we captured gave us actionable intelligence after interrogation. They work for a new player in Gotham, someone calling themselves the Engineer. Based on the components stolen, they're building a device capable of remotely controlling any electronic system in the city." "Like a super hacker thing?" Ben asked, curiosity momentarily overriding his guilt. Bruce nodded. "Precisely. The final component they need is housed in the main Wayne Enterprises building downtown, a quantum processing chip my company developed." "So you know where they'll hit next?" "Yes. And I intend to be ready for them." Ben hesitated, then asked the question burning in his mind. "And, what about me?" Bruce's expression remained unreadable. "You're grounded for 2 weeks. No television, no video games, no access to the cave." Ben's shoulders slumped, though he'd expected worse. "Yes, sir. And," Bruce continued, "after those 2 weeks, if you've demonstrated responsibility and continued your training regimen, you may accompany me on a controlled patrol." Ben's eyes widened. "For real?" "With strict conditions," Bruce cautioned. "You will follow my orders exactly. You will remain in observation mode only unless explicitly instructed otherwise. And you will use only the alien forms I approve for the specific mission." It wasn't freedom, but it was progress. Bruce was giving him a chance, a real chance, to prove himself. "I understand," Ben agreed solemnly. "I won't let you down again." Bruce studied him for another long moment before the faintest hint of a smile touched his lips. "Despite your recklessness, you showed courage last night. That's something that can't be taught." The almost smile vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "But discipline can be, and will be. Starting now." Ben nodded, straightening his posture. "Yes, sir. Your punishment begins immediately. Alfred has prepared the south wing for cleaning, all of it. By hand." Ben groaned internally but knew better than to complain. "I'll get started right away." As he turned to leave, Bruce added, "Ben. Yeah. The engineer will likely make their move within the next few days. After your chores, I want a full report of everything you observed about the thieves' technology and fighting styles. Your perspective might be valuable." Ben couldn't help the small smile that spread across his face. Bruce was still angry, still disappointed, but he was also treating Ben like a partner, not just a kid who needed protection. "I won't let you down," Ben promised. Bruce nodded once. "I know." The next 2 weeks were grueling. Beyond the endless chores Alfred invented with surprising creativity, Bruce had doubled Ben's physical training regimen as part of his punishment. By the end of each day, Ben collapsed into bed with aching muscles and the knowledge that he'd earned every bit of his punishment. But something had changed between him and Bruce. The distance that had existed since Ben first arrived at Wayne Manor had diminished. Bruce still wasn't warm, Ben doubted he knew how to be, but he was more present, more engaged. He asked Ben's opinions during training, listened to his ideas about the Omnitrix, and even occasionally joined him for dinner, discussing cases in general terms that wouldn't violate his grounding from the cave. On the final day of his punishment, Ben was surprised when Bruce appeared in workout clothes for their morning training session rather than leaving it to Alfred as he had several times recently. "Extra special torture planned for my last day of grounding?" Ben quipped as they stretched. Bruce raised an eyebrow. "Consider it a final evaluation." The workout that followed was the most intense yet, running, climbing, dodging, even sparring, though Bruce held back enough to avoid seriously injuring him. By the end, Ben lay sprawled on the grass, gasping for breath. "Did I pass?" he wheezed. Bruce looked down at him, expression neutral as always. "Marginally." Ben grinned, recognizing this as high praise from Batman. "So that means I get to go on patrol tonight? The engineer hasn't made their move yet, right?" "No, they haven't. Our intelligence suggests they're planning to strike the main Wayne Tower tomorrow night. So tonight is just a regular patrol?" Ben sat up, excitement building. "What alien should I use? Forearms for strength? XLR-8 for speed? Or maybe, tonight you'll remain in human form," Bruce interrupted. "Observation only, as agreed." Ben's face fell. "Human form? But what's the point of having the Omnitrix if I can't use it?" "The point is learning when to use it," Bruce replied. "Power isn't always the answer, Ben. Sometimes observation, deduction, and strategy are more valuable than raw strength or speed. But, those were the terms. Take it or leave it." Ben wanted to argue but remembered how his last act of defiance had turned out. "Fine," he agreed reluctantly. "Human form, observation only. I get it." Bruce nodded once, apparently satisfied. "Be ready at 9. We'll start with a standard patrol route." Ben's disappointment couldn't quell his excitement. He was going on patrol with Batman. Even without using the Omnitrix, this was going to be amazing. 9 o'clock found Ben in the Batcave, bouncing on his toes with poorly contained enthusiasm as Bruce methodically donned the Batsuit. "Will I get a costume too?" Ben asked. "Something that works with the Omnitrix but still looks cool. Maybe with a bat symbol." "For observation duty, you'll wear this," Bruce replied, retrieving a bundle from a storage locker. Ben unwrapped the package to find what looked like a modified version of Batman's utility belt, a small domino mask, and a dark hooded jacket with subtle armoring. "Whoa," Ben breathed, immediately strapping on the belt. "The belt contains non-lethal defensive items only," Bruce explained. "Smoke pellets, a basic first aid kit, a flashlight, and a grapple with a weight rating appropriate for someone your size." He tapped a small device on the side. "This is a panic button. Press it if you're in danger and can't reach me directly." "This is so cool." Ben pulled on the jacket, which fit perfectly. "What about the mask?" "Identity protection is essential. Even as an observer." Ben placed the domino mask over his eyes, surprised at how well it adhered without adhesive. "How do I look?" Alfred, approaching with a tray of equipment for Batman, smiled slightly. "Most intimidating, Master Ben." Bruce checked his own equipment one final time before pulling on the cowl, transforming fully into Batman. "Remember the rules," he said, voice deepening into the familiar growl. "Stay close. Observe only. Do exactly as I say without question or hesitation." Ben nodded solemnly. "I promise." "Then let's go." Gotham City at night was nothing like the Gotham Ben saw during occasional daytime trips with Alfred. From the rooftops, following Batman's silent, efficient movement from building to building, the city transformed into a landscape of shadows and glowing windows, sirens wailing in the distance, the constant hum of traffic below. Batman started with a standard patrol route, showing Ben the techniques he used to scan for criminal activity, listening for distinctive sounds, watching for unusual movements, identifying patterns in the city's rhythm that might indicate trouble. They stopped 2 muggings in quick succession, with Batman dropping silently from above while Ben watched from nearby rooftops. The second mugger tried to run, but Batman took him down with a perfectly aimed batarang to the legs before he'd made it 10 feet. "Whoa," Ben whispered as Batman efficiently zip-tied the criminal's hands. "That was awesome." Batman shot him a look that clearly said to maintain silence, but Ben caught what might have been the faintest hint of pride in his mentor's posture. As they moved to a new section of the city, Batman suddenly went rigid, hand to his ear where Ben knew a police scanner was built into his cowl. "Armed robbery in progress," Batman reported quietly. "Gotham First National, 3 blocks east." "Are we going?" Ben asked eagerly. Batman hesitated, assessing. "Yes. But you will remain on the rooftop across the street. Observation only." "Got it." They moved quickly across the rooftops, Batman with the fluid grace of long practice, Ben following with increasing confidence in the grappling equipment. When they reached the bank, 4 police cars were already outside, officers crouched behind their vehicles with weapons drawn. Batman guided Ben to a shadow-cloaked position on a building with a clear view of the bank's entrance. "Stay here. Use these." He handed Ben a pair of compact binoculars. "Note everything you observe about the robbers, numbers, weapons, behavior patterns." Ben nodded, raising the binoculars. "What's the plan?" "I'll enter through the roof access and neutralize the threat." "Alone?" "There could be a lot of them." Batman's expression was unreadable behind the cowl. "I've handled worse." With that, he fired his grapple and swung across to the bank's roof, disappearing from view within seconds. Ben watched through the binoculars as Batman melted into the bank through a ventilation shaft. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. The police maintained their position, occasionally speaking into radios, weapons trained on the main doors. Then chaos erupted. Gunshots echoed from inside the bank. Lights flickered. A robber flew through a window, landing unconscious on the sidewalk. Ben held his breath, watching intently. More sounds of conflict came from inside, crashes, shouts, the distinctive sound of Batman's batarangs hitting walls and weapons. 2 more robbers burst through the front doors, firing wildly behind them. Batman emerged from the shadows, cape spread wide, seeming to absorb bullets that Ben knew were probably bouncing off carefully placed armor. One robber went down with a kick to the knee, the other managed to dart around the side of the building, out of the police's line of sight. Batman efficiently subdued the downed robber, then took off after the fleeing one, disappearing around the same corner. Ben bit his lip, torn between his promise to stay put and his desire to see what was happening. From his current position, he couldn't observe the side of the building where the action had moved. Technically, if he repositioned to maintain observation, he wasn't disobeying orders, right? Making a split-second decision, Ben used his grapple to move to a better vantage point on an adjacent building. From this new angle, he could see the narrow alley running along the bank's side. Batman had the robber cornered, the man's gun apparently empty as he frantically tried to reload. What neither of them had noticed was a third robber, previously unseen, taking aim at Batman from behind a dumpster further down the alley. Ben's heart leaped into his throat. Batman was about to be shot in the back. Without conscious thought, his hand went to the Omnitrix, ready to transform and intervene. But Bruce's words echoed in his mind, sometimes observation, deduction, and strategy are more valuable than raw strength or speed. Instead of activating the Omnitrix, Ben's hand moved to his utility belt. The grapple wouldn't work, wrong angle. The smoke pellets might distract the hidden robber but could also distract Batman. What else did he have? His fingers found the flashlight, not just any flashlight, but one of Batman's specialized tools, with multiple settings including, if Ben remembered correctly from his equipment briefing, a high-intensity strobe. Without hesitation, Ben pointed the light at the hidden robber's position and activated the strobe function. Brilliant, disorienting flashes lit up the alley. The hidden robber cried out in surprise, momentarily blinded and revealing his position. Batman, trained to react to unexpected stimuli, instantly assessed the new threat and threw a batarang that knocked the gun from the dazed robber's hand. Within seconds, Batman had subdued both criminals. As police moved in to secure the scene, Batman glanced up, eyes finding Ben's new position immediately. Even from a distance, Ben could read the question in his posture. Ben pointed to the flashlight, then gave a thumbs up. Batman nodded once, acknowledgement of Ben's quick thinking, before disappearing into the shadows as the police approached. Minutes later, Batman reappeared on the rooftop beside Ben. "You changed position." "I needed a better observation angle," Ben explained quickly. "When they moved around the corner, I couldn't see anything from where you left me." Batman studied him silently for a moment. "You saw the third robber?" "Yeah. He was going to shoot you in the back while you were dealing with the other guy. And instead of transforming to intervene directly, you used the tools provided to create a distraction." Ben nodded. "You said observation and strategy were sometimes better than power. I figured blinding him would work better than charging in and maybe getting shot myself." Something that might have been approval flickered across the visible portion of Batman's face. "Good call." The simple praise sent a wave of pride through Ben that felt better than any of his successful training sessions with the Omnitrix. He'd helped Batman, really helped, without even using alien powers. "Ready to continue patrol?" Batman asked. Ben grinned. "Lead the way." The rest of the patrol was less eventful, a car thief easily apprehended, a drug deal broken up with Batman's characteristic efficiency, and a lot of watching and listening from rooftops. By 1 a.m., Ben was struggling to hide his yawns, the excitement of the evening wearing off as fatigue set in. Batman noticed, of course. "Time to head back. You need rest before school tomorrow." Ben groaned. School was the worst part of living with Bruce. After his parents' death, Ben had transferred to Gotham Academy, a fancy private school where he felt completely out of place among the children of Gotham's elite. "Do I have to go? Can't we just say I'm sick or something?" "Education is non-negotiable," Batman replied, already moving toward home. As they traversed the rooftops heading back toward the outskirts of the city where Wayne Manor waited, Batman suddenly paused, head tilted in that way that meant he was receiving information through his cowl. "What is it?" Ben asked. Break-in at Wayne Enterprises. Main tower. Ben's eyes widened. The engineer? I thought you said they were planning to hit tomorrow night. Intelligence isn't always accurate, Batman replied grimly. This changes things. I'm taking you home first. What? No way. This is the big case you've been working on for weeks. I can help. It's too dangerous. The engineer's technology is advanced and unpredictable. Which is exactly why you need backup. Ben argued. What if they have some tech that affects your equipment? I have the Omnitrix, it's completely separate from any Earth technology. Batman paused, considering this point. You'd remain in observation mode only. Unless you specifically need me, Ben amended. Come on, you know it makes tactical sense to have me there, even just as a backup option. After a moment of internal debate, Batman nodded curtly. Fine. But absolute obedience to my commands. Promise, Ben agreed immediately, thrilled at the unexpected opportunity. They changed direction, heading toward the towering skyscraper in downtown Gotham with the Wayne name illuminated at its peak. As they got closer, Batman slowed, approaching more cautiously. Security systems are down, he noted. No alarms, no police response. Isn't that weird for such a big company? Batman nodded. The engineer has likely used already stolen components to create a device that suppresses electronic signals. The quantum processor thereafter is in a secure lab on the 47th floor. They grappled to a maintenance platform on the 46th floor, Batman easily picking the lock on a service door to grant them access. The building was eerily quiet, emergency lights casting long shadows down empty corridors. Stay close, Batman instructed, moving silently through the halls toward a central stairwell. The main elevators and security elevators will be monitored. We'll take the maintenance stairs up one floor. The stairwell was dark, illuminated only by small emergency lights at each landing. Batman moved like a shadow, Ben following as quietly as he could manage, though his footsteps seemed thunderous compared to his mentor's silent grace. At the 47th floor door, Batman paused, listening intently before easing it open a crack. Beyond, Ben could see a large open-plan laboratory space filled with cutting-edge equipment. In the center of the room, three figures worked at a reinforced glass enclosure containing what must be the quantum processor. 3 hostiles, Batman whispered. Same equipment as the thieves you encountered. Ben nodded, recognizing the sleek, shadow-blending suits and the electrical weapons. What's the plan? I'll disable the 2 on the left. You remain here as observation and backup. Got it. Batman slipped through the door, immediately melting into the shadows between workstations. Ben watched in awe as he navigated the space, completely invisible to the thieves despite being in the same room. The first thief went down silently, Batman emerging from darkness just long enough to apply a chokehold that rendered the figure unconscious within seconds. The second proved more challenging, spinning around at some small sound, energy weapon raised. Batman, the thief hissed, firing wildly in the direction of the sound. Batman dodged the electrical blast, throwing a batarang that knocked the weapon flying. The third thief abandoned their work at the processor enclosure, drawing a similar weapon. It's the Bat. Call the engineer, one shouted to the other. Batman engaged both remaining thieves simultaneously, his combat skills clearly superior but their electrical weapons creating a dangerous element he had to constantly avoid. One blast caught him in the shoulder, making him stumble momentarily, long enough for the other thief to land a solid kick to his side. From his position at the door, Ben tensed, hand hovering over the Omnitrix. Batman hadn't called for help yet, but the situation was escalating quickly. One thief broke away from the fight, racing back to the processor enclosure and attaching some kind of device to the glass. Cover me. I need 30 seconds to break the security. Batman knocked down one opponent with a sweep of his legs, but the thief rolled away before he could be secured, grabbing their weapon again. Both thieves now concentrated their fire on Batman, forcing him to duck behind a lab bench for cover. The glass around the processor began to glow as the device attached to it worked to break down its security measures. In seconds, they would have the component they needed. Backup. Batman called sharply, diving away from another electrical blast that shattered equipment behind him. That was the signal Ben had been waiting for. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling quickly through the available aliens before selecting Diamond Head, the crystalline form whose body would be resistant to electrical attacks. In a flash of green light, Ben transformed, his body becoming living crystal. He burst through the door, glittering in the emergency lights. Knock knock. The thieves' heads whipped around in shock. What the hell is that? One gasped. Name's Diamond Head, Ben announced, forming his arm into a crystal blade. And you guys are really bad at stealing stuff. Taking advantage of the distraction, Batman launched himself at the thief working on the processor, tackling them away from the enclosure. Ben engaged the other, blocking an electrical blast with his crystalline arm. Nice try, Ben taunted, the electricity dispersing harmlessly across his mineral surface. My turn. He stomped one foot, sending crystal spikes erupting from the floor toward the thief, who leapt away with impressive agility. The thief fired again and again, but each blast simply reflected off Ben's diamond-hard body. The boss never said anything about aliens, the thief shouted to their companion, who was grappling with Batman near the enclosure. Forget the processor. We need to abort, the other called back. The thief fighting Ben made a break for the door, but Ben wasn't having it. He extended his arm, creating a crystal barrier that blocked the exit. Going somewhere? The thief skidded to a halt, then whirled, adjusting something on their weapon. The next blast that hit Ben was different, not electricity but some kind of sonic pulse that sent painful vibrations through his crystalline form. Arg! Ben cried out, momentarily stunned as cracks appeared across his surface. That's cheating. The thief fired again, the sonic attack creating more fractures in Ben's body. Despite the pain, Ben focused on healing the damage, a natural ability of this particular form. As the thief prepared a third shot, Ben raised both arms and fired crystal shards in rapid succession. The projectile struck the weapon with pinpoint accuracy, jamming its mechanism. When the thief pulled the trigger again, the device exploded in their hands, sending them flying backward into a wall. Meanwhile, Batman had subdued the other thief, securing them with zip ties. The processor remained safe in its enclosure, the security braking device now deactivated and in Batman's possession. Nice work, Batman acknowledged as Ben approached, still in Diamond Head form. Are you injured? Nothing I can't fix, Ben replied, the last of the cracks in his body sealing themselves. These guys didn't seem as tough as the ones from the research facility. Because they aren't the primary team, Batman deduced, examining the thieves' equipment. These are decoys. Decoys? But the processor is still here because this was a distraction. Batman moved swiftly to a computer terminal, typing rapidly. The engineer wanted us focused on this building while, he stopped suddenly, eyes narrowing at whatever appeared on the screen. While what? Ben prompted. While they targeted the real objective. There's a power surge at the Gotham Central Power Grid Control Station. Batman was already moving toward the exit. They never wanted the processor itself, they wanted to ensure we were protecting it while they attacked the city's power infrastructure. But why would they want to control Gotham's power grid? Ben asked, following quickly. Not control it. Weaponize it. Batman's voice was grim. With the components they've already stolen, they could turn every electrical device in Gotham into a weapon or surveillance tool. That's really bad, Ben agreed. So we're heading to the power station? Batman nodded sharply. Can that form move quickly? Ben considered. Not as fast as XLR-8, but I can create crystal slides to travel rapidly. Do it. We need to reach the station within 10 minutes. Using his crystalline powers, Ben created a pathway outside the building, a smooth crystal slide that extended from their current height down to street level, angled to control their descent. "This'll work," Ben assured Batman, who looked at the construct with mild skepticism before nodding once. Together, they slid down the crystal pathway, Ben extending it forward as they moved, creating an efficient if unusual method of rapid transit through Gotham streets. Batman used his grapple at key points to adjust their course, guiding them toward the industrial district where the power station waited. As they approached, the difference between this facility and Wayne Tower was immediately apparent. While the corporate building had been quiet and dark, the power station was alive with activity, strange, pulsing energy flowing between the transformers, crackling along power lines in patterns that electricity shouldn't follow. "That doesn't look normal," Ben observed. "It's not," Batman confirmed grimly. "They've already begun the process of converting the grid." They landed on a rooftop overlooking the station's main yard. From this vantage point, they could see figures moving around a central control building, installing devices on key infrastructure. "I count 6 hostiles," Batman noted. "And one additional figure, likely the engineer." Ben followed Batman's gaze to see a person unlike the others, taller, wearing not the shadow suit of the thieves but an elaborate technological outfit that seemed to pulse with the same energy affecting the power grid. Their face was obscured by a helmet with a glowing visor. "What's the plan?" Ben asked, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest beginning to blink red as his transformation neared its time limit. Batman analyzed the situation with characteristic thoroughness. "Your crystal form is about to time out. What other forms would be effective against electrical-based weapons?" Ben considered. "Forearms has the strength but is vulnerable to their weapons. XLR-8 has speed but the same vulnerability. Maybe." An idea struck him. "Upgrade. The technological alien you described but haven't yet used in training?" Ben nodded. "He can merge with and control technology. If the engineer is using tech to control the power grid, maybe Upgrade can counter it." Batman considered this for a moment, then nodded. "When your current form times out, transform into Upgrade. I'll engage the perimeter guards while you focus on the central control systems." "Got it," Ben agreed, just as the Omnitrix symbol flashed red and beeped rapidly. "Here we go." In a flash of red light, Ben returned to human form. The Omnitrix immediately began recharging, its face turning from red to green within seconds, faster than usual, Ben noticed with interest. "It's like it knows this is an emergency," he commented, activating the device again and selecting the silhouette he'd never used before. Green light enveloped him as he transformed into Upgrade, a liquid-like technological being with black skin patterned with green circuitry lines and a single eye in the center of its face. "Whoa," Ben's voice had a mechanical, slightly echoing quality in this form. "This feels weird. Like I'm made of living code or something." "Focus," Batman reminded him. "Your objective is the central control panel. Disable whatever device the engineer is using to corrupt the power grid." "On it." Batman fired his grapple, swinging down into the facility with characteristic dramatic flair, immediately engaging 2 guards near the perimeter fence. Ben, in his new Upgrade form, discovered he could stretch and reshape his body almost like liquid, flowing down from the rooftop in a stream of technological goo. Inside the power station, chaos erupted as Batman systematically took down the perimeter guards. The engineer, alerted to the intrusion, barked orders to the remaining thieves. "Protect the integration nodes. The process is at 60%. Ben flowed across the ground, avoiding detection as he approached the central control building. His new form felt strange but incredibly powerful. He could sense the technology around him in ways he couldn't explain, like being able to see the flow of electricity through systems. As he neared the main control panel where the engineer worked, Ben understood the villain's plan more clearly. They had attached devices to key points in Gotham's power grid, integration nodes, they'd called them, that were gradually reprogramming the entire system to respond to the engineer's commands. The engineer themselves was interfacing directly with the main control panel through cables extending from their advanced suit. Energy pulsed from the suit into the systems, accelerating the corruption process. 70% integration, the engineer announced, satisfaction evident in their mechanically distorted voice. Soon, every electronic device in Gotham will be an extension of my will. Ben saw his opportunity. Rather than attacking directly, he flowed up the back of the control panel, his liquid-like body seeping into the circuitry. Inside the machine, Ben found he could literally become one with the technology, accessing its systems and understanding them instinctively. He could feel the engineer's program spreading through the grid, a virus-like code rewriting everything it touched. But as upgrade, Ben could counter it, his own technological nature allowing him to fight the corruption on its own terms. "What's happening?" the engineer demanded as their progress suddenly halted. Integration stalled at 75%. Ben pushed harder, his consciousness spreading through the system, fighting back the engineer's code. Within the technology, it was like a direct battle of wills, the engineer's programming against Ben's alien interface abilities. Outside, Batman had neutralized most of the remaining guards and was engaging the final two in hand-to-hand combat near the main transformer. The engineer, focusing entirely on the failing integration, hadn't noticed the black and green technological being that had invaded their systems. "System breach detected," the engineer suddenly announced, fingers flying across controls. "Something is counteracting the integration protocol." Ben decided it was time to reveal himself. He emerged partially from the control panel, his single eye staring directly at the engineer while the rest of his body remained merged with the technology. "Integration cancelled," Ben announced in Upgrade's mechanical voice. "Program, deleted." "What are you?" the engineer demanded, backing away in shock. Ben fully emerged from the control panel, his body reforming into a humanoid shape with circuits still glowing across his surface. "Name's Upgrade. And you're done hacking Gotham's grid." The engineer recovered from their surprise quickly, raising arms that transformed into advanced weapons. "You may have disrupted my integration, but you won't stop me." Energy blasts shot from the engineer's weapons, but Ben's upgrade form simply allowed them to pass through his malleable body, holes closing instantly after the energy passed through. "Cool trick," Ben commented. "My turn." He stretched forward, his liquid-like body engulfing the engineer's right arm. Instead of just covering it, Ben's consciousness interfaced directly with the engineer's suit, taking control of its systems. "No!" the engineer cried as their own arm weapon turned against them, forcing them to dodge their own blast. "Impossible. You're interfacing with my tech." "That's kind of my whole thing," Ben replied, spreading further across the engineer's suit. "Let's see what else this fancy outfit can do." As Ben took over more of the suit, he gained access to its systems and, by extension, the engineer's plans. The villain had intended to use Gotham's power grid to create a citywide surveillance and control network, with themselves at the center, able to access any electronic device, control infrastructure, even potentially weaponize everyday technology against the population. "You're insane," Ben realized, now controlling almost 70% of the suit. "You wanted to turn Gotham into your personal puppet show." The engineer struggled frantically, trying to eject from the suit as Ben's control spread. "The city is chaotic, ungovernable. Under my control, it would finally have order." "Yeah, that's not how freedom works," Ben retorted, completing his takeover of the suit. With full control, he shut down its systems completely, leaving the engineer powerless inside their own creation. Batman appeared, the last of the guards subdued. "Good work," he acknowledged, taking in the scene with a quick glance. "The engineer?" "Trapped in their own suit," Ben explained, disconnecting from the now inert technology. "I shut it down completely." "Can you reverse the damage to the power grid?" Ben nodded, flowing back to the main control panel. "Already on it." As upgrade, Ben merged with the system again, systematically removing all traces of the engineer's programming and restoring the grid to its normal functions. Outside the station, lights across Gotham that had begun to flicker strangely steadied, returning to their normal patterns. By the time police arrived to take the engineer and their accomplices into custody, Ben had fully restored the power grid and returned to human form, the Omnitrix timing out just as the last system came back online. Perfect timing, Ben commented, watching from the shadows beside Batman as officers led the engineer, now extracted from their disabled suit, into a transport vehicle. Batman nodded once. Your intervention was effective. Coming from Batman, this was practically gushing praise. Ben couldn't help the proud smile that spread across his face. We make a pretty good team. Batman didn't disagree, which Ben counted as a win. It's late. Time to go home. Home, Ben repeated softly, the word feeling right in a way it hadn't since his parents died. Wayne Manor wasn't just a place he was staying anymore, it was home. As they traveled back through the quiet pre-dawn streets of Gotham, Ben realized something had shifted tonight. He'd proven himself capable not just to Batman, but to himself as well. The Omnitrix had chosen him for a reason, and tonight he'd shown he was worthy of that choice. Bruce, he ventured as they approached the hidden entrance to the Batcave, using his guardian's real name for perhaps the first time since learning his secret. Yes. Thanks. For letting me help tonight. For everything, really. Bruce was silent for a long moment as the Batmobile slid into its parking bay in the cave. Finally, he pulled back the cowl, becoming simply Bruce Wayne again. The hint of a smile touched his usually stern features. You did well tonight, Ben. Your parents would be proud. The simple words hit Ben with unexpected force, tears suddenly threatening. He blinked them back quickly, not wanting to ruin the moment. So does this mean I get to go on more patrols? He asked, forcing lightness into his tone. Bruce's almost smile grew slightly. We'll see. That's not a no, Ben observed, grinning. It's not a yes, either, Bruce countered, but the usual sternness was absent from his voice. Now get some sleep. You still have school tomorrow. Ben groaned dramatically, but his heart wasn't in the complaint. Tonight had changed everything. Batman and Ben 10, Gotham's newest crime-fighting duo. The city wouldn't know what hit it. Fine, but I'm telling Alfred you let me stay out until 4 a.m. on a school night. Alfred is already aware. Who do you think has been monitoring our communications all night? Master Ben, Master Bruce. Alfred's voice came through the cave's intercom system right on cue. Might I suggest a hot breakfast before bed? You've both had a rather eventful evening. Ben laughed, the sound echoing through the massive cave. For the first time since losing his parents, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere. With the Omnitrix on his wrist and Batman as his mentor, Ben Tennyson was finally home. Chapter 3, Worlds collide. 1 year to the day after the funeral that brought him to Wayne Manor, Ben Tennyson crouched on a Gotham rooftop, binoculars trained on the warehouse below. The past 12 months felt like a lifetime, transforming him from a grieving, lost kid into something else entirely. 2 guards at the east entrance, another patrolling the perimeter, Ben reported through his comm link. Thermal imaging shows 6 more inside, clustered around what looks like a large container in the center of the main floor. Assessment of threat level. Batman's voice came through the earpiece, calm and expectant. Ben studied the guards' movements, noting the way they carried their weapons and maintained formation. Professional, not street thugs. Military training based on their stance and patrol patterns. Armed with conventional weapons, but the gear looks custom. Definitely not your average Gotham goons. Good observation, Batman acknowledged. Proceed to Phase 2 position. Maintain radio silence until my signal. Copy that. Ben slipped the binoculars into his utility belt, a more advanced version than the one he'd started with a year ago. This belt contained specialized compartments for different situations, custom designed by Bruce to complement Ben's unique abilities. Tonight he wore what Alfred had dubbed his field uniform, a reinforced black and dark green bodysuit with subtle armor panels and a stylized hourglass symbol on the chest that mimicked the Omnitrix's icon. The uniform was practical rather than flashy, designed to work equally well in human form or when transformed into most alien forms. The domino mask concealing his identity included built-in tech that connected to the Bat computer for information sharing and analysis. The entire setup reflected a year of refinement and training, the evolution of Batman and Ben 10's partnership from impromptu team-up to coordinated operation. Ben fired his grappling line to a lower building, using the controlled descent technique Bruce had drilled into him over countless practice sessions. He landed in a crouch, absorbing the impact exactly as trained, then moved silently toward his designated position. A flicker of movement in his peripheral vision made him freeze, pressing into the shadows of an air conditioning unit. Someone else was on the rooftop, someone who moved with the same practice stealth Ben had been learning. Ben reached slowly for one of the non-lethal weapons in his belt, then relaxed as a familiar voice whispered from the darkness. "A little jumpy tonight, aren't we?" A figure in a black and blue uniform stepped from the shadows, a domino mask similar to Ben's concealing his identity despite the easy grin on his face. "Nightwing," Ben breathed, relief mixing with excitement. "Batman didn't mention you'd be joining us." "Last-minute addition," Nightwing replied, crouching beside Ben with fluid grace. "I was in Bloodhaven working a case that connected to this one." He studied Ben with open curiosity. "So you're the kid Bruce has been training. Nice uniform." "Very," brooding junior detective. "Better than the original prototype," Ben admitted with a grin. "That one had actual bat ears." Nightwing chuckled softly. "Been there. Still have the photos to prove it." He glanced toward their objective. "Bruce briefed me on the basics. Suspected alien tech, possible connection to the samples that have been collected from your transformations." Ben nodded, impressed that Batman had shared that much information. "We've been tracking these guys for months. They hit a Wayne-Tech storage facility last week and took specialized cooling equipment. Combined with the alien DNA they might have from my necrophrygian transformation, you're what now?" Nightwing interrupted. "Big chill," Ben clarified. "The moth-like alien that can generate extreme cold and phase through solid objects." "Right, of course," Nightwing replied with mock seriousness. "The moth alien that freezes things." Much clearer now. Ben grinned despite the tense situation. He'd heard about Nightwing, Batman's first protege and the original Robin, but this was their first time working together. The older hero's easy manner was a stark contrast to Batman's perpetual intensity. Their conversation was cut short by Batman's voice through the comm, target vehicle approaching from the south. "Prepare for Phase 2. "That's our cue," Nightwing said, all business now despite the lingering smile. "You take position at the skylight. I'll cover the west entrance." Ben nodded, moving quickly to his designated spot as Nightwing disappeared over the edge of the roof. Below, a refrigerated truck pulled up to the warehouse's loading dock, guards immediately moving to secure the area around it. "Vehicle matches the one from the Arctic Technologies robbery," Ben reported quietly. "Same driver based on physical profile." "Hold position," Batman instructed. "Observation only until we confirm contents." Ben watched as workers began unloading large, cylindrical containers from the truck, each frosted with extreme cold. His enhanced mask display showed temperature readings well below anything conventional freezing technology could achieve. "Batman, those containers are registering at -200 degrees Celsius, he reported. "That's cryogenic level cold." "Consistent with necrophrygian physiological capabilities," Batman confirmed. "Prepare for potential Phase 3 escalation." Ben's hand moved instinctively to the Omnitrix, now augmented with the latest version of the masking technology they'd developed. Over the past months, they'd established clear protocols for when transformation was authorized during missions, typically only in emergency situations or when specifically part of the planned operation. Tonight, Phase 3 would authorize transformation if they confirmed alien technology was present. The warehouse's main doors opened, and Ben tensed as a familiar figure emerged to inspect the delivery. Visual confirmation on Victor Fry's, Batman's voice came through the comm, wearing modified cryosuit, different from his Arkham-confiscated equipment. "Mr. Freeze?" Ben whispered. "But how? You said he was still in Arkham." "Apparent escape not yet reported to GCPD," Batman replied. "Timeline suggests within the last 12 hours. Ben watched as Freeze directed the workers to bring the containers inside, his mechanical cryosuit gleaming under the dock lights. "He's got new tech. The suit looks different. More advanced." Noted. "Maintain position." Once the delivery was complete and the doors closed, Ben shifted to get a better view through the skylight. Inside, Freeze and his men had arranged the containers around a central platform where something large was covered by insulated tarps. "I need a better visual on the central object," Batman stated. "Nightwing, status?" "In position at the west maintenance entrance. Guards are focused on the delivery. I can access the catwalks for an overhead view. Proceed with caution." Ben continued his surveillance as Freeze approached the covered object, workers carefully removing the insulation to reveal what lay beneath. When the final covering was pulled away, Ben's breath caught in his throat. "Batman," he whispered urgently, "it's some kind of stasis pod. There's something inside it, something not human." Through the skylight, Ben could see a transparent chamber filled with swirling cold mist. Within it floated a blue, moth-like creature, unmistakably a necrophrygian, the same species as Ben's Big Chill transformation. "Visual confirmation of necrophrygian presence," Batman reported. "Phase 3 authorized. Nightwing, prepare for entry on my mark." "Wait," Ben interrupted, studying the scene more carefully. "Something's wrong. The necrophrygian, it's restrained. And there are tubes connected to its body, extracting something." Through his mask's enhanced vision, Ben could see that the alien wasn't a willing participant. It struggled weakly against restraints, while Freeze's equipment drew what appeared to be energy or fluid from its body. "They're harvesting it," Ben realized with growing horror. "They're using it to power whatever they're building." Batman's voice turned even grimmer. "Exploitation of sentient being confirmed. Primary objective updated to include necrophrygian rescue. Ben, transformation authorized. Use XLR-8 for rapid extraction of the alien subject." "On it," Ben replied, already activating the Omnitrix and selecting the speedster alien. In a flash of muted green light, dimmed by the masking technology, he transformed into the velociraptor-like form with wheeled feet and enhanced speed capabilities. "Entry in 3, Batman counted down. 2. 1. Execute." Ben crashed through the skylight in a blur of motion just as Batman burst through the main doors and Nightwing swung down from the catwalks. The coordinated assault took Freeze's men by surprise, creating momentary confusion that the team exploited perfectly. "We have company," Freeze announced calmly despite the chaos, reaching for a modified freeze gun. "Secure the specimen and activate the harvesters." Ben zoomed through the warehouse at nearly 500 miles per hour, dodging gunfire with XLR-8's enhanced reflexes and taking down 3 guards before they could even track his movement. Batman engaged Freeze directly while Nightwing targeted the controls for the stasis chamber. "The control system is locked." Nightwing called out, dodging a blast from Freeze's weapon. "Can't release the containment from here." "I'll handle it." Ben called back, zipping toward the stasis pod. Up close, he could see the necrophrygian's weakened state, its normally bright blue coloring faded to a sickly pale shade. Freeze turned his weapon toward Ben. "The specimen stays where it is." A blast of extreme cold shot toward XLR-8, but Ben's speed allowed him to dodge easily. "Sorry, Freeze, but keeping people on ice isn't cool." Ben winced internally at his own pun even as he circled the villain at high speed. "Predictable," Freeze responded flatly, pressing a button on his wrist controller. Suddenly, the floor beneath Ben's wheeled feet turned to frictionless ice. XLR-8's momentum sent him sliding uncontrollably into a stack of equipment. Oof! Ben crashed hard, momentarily dazed by the impact. Batman, meanwhile, had closed distance with Freeze, using specialized batarangs designed to target the vulnerable points in cryosuits. But Freeze's new armor deflected them with ease. "Your weapons were designed for my old technology, Batman," Freeze observed coldly. "This new suit incorporates alien physiological principles. Your conventional attacks are useless." To demonstrate, Freeze generated a cold field around his body that forced Batman to retreat or risk immediate frostbite. Even through his insulated suit, Batman's exposed face showed the effects of the sub-zero temperature. Nightwing flipped over a freezing blast, throwing his electrified Eskrima sticks at the power conduits feeding the stasis chamber. "Ben! Get the alien out while we handle Freeze." Ben shook off his disorientation, assessing the situation with the tactical awareness Bruce had drilled into him. XLR-8 speed was valuable, but not ideal for breaking through the reinforced stasis pod. He needed something stronger. Touching the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, Ben triggered a transformation shift. Green light flashed as he changed from XLR-8 to Forearms, the massive, four-armed powerhouse with enhanced strength. "Let's see your ice stop this." Ben challenged, charging toward the stasis chamber with all four arms ready to tear it apart. Freeze adjusted his strategy immediately. "Initiate Countermeasure Protocol 7. One of the remaining guards activated a device that emitted a high-frequency sonic pulse. The sound hit Ben like a physical blow, disrupting his concentration and balance, a specific counter to Forearms' physiology, just like they'd encountered with Wildvine months earlier. "They've got countermeasures for all my aliens." Ben realized, struggling to stay upright as the sonic attack continued. As predicted, Freeze confirmed emotionlessly. "Your transformations have been extensively studied." Despite the disorientation, Ben forced himself forward toward the stasis pod. The Necrophrygian inside made eye contact with him, a silent plea evident despite the alien's expressionless face. Ben couldn't let pain stop him, not when another being's freedom was at stake. With a roar of determination, Ben pushed through the sonic disruption and reached the chamber, gripping it with all four hands and pulling with everything he had. The reinforced material groaned under the pressure, hairline cracks appearing on its surface. "The specimen," one of Freeze's scientists shouted in alarm. "He's compromising containment." Freeze turned his attention fully to Ben, firing his freeze gun at maximum power. "Stop him." The blast hit Ben squarely in the back, ice immediately forming across Forearm's massive body. Unlike normal ice, this frozen substance actively spread, crawling across his limbs and restricting movement. "Can't move." Ben grunted, his muscles straining against the rapidly expanding ice. Batman saw Ben's predicament and changed tactics, throwing smoke pellets that filled the area around Freeze with dense fog. Using the cover, he maneuvered behind the villain and attached a small device to the back of Freeze's suit. "Your new technology has one fundamental weakness, Victor," Batman stated as the device activated, sending electrical pulses through Freeze's systems. "Over-reliance on untested components." The suit's functions faltered momentarily, just long enough for Nightwing to land a perfect blow to a junction point in the armor, creating a small breach in its integrity. "Temperature stabilization compromised," Freeze announced, actual concern coloring his usually emotionless voice. "Initiating emergency protocols." While the battle with Freeze continued, Ben struggled against the spreading ice that now covered most of his Forearm's body. The stasis chamber remained cracked but intact, the Necrophrygian inside watching him with desperate eyes. Ben knew he needed to change tactics. The ice was specifically designed to counter physical strength, growing more restrictive the harder he struggled. He needed a form that could overcome this specialized trap. Focusing through the pain of the freezing cold, Ben managed to reach the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Another flash of green light transformed him from Forearms to Heatblast, the magma-bodied fire alien. The ice covering him immediately began to melt, steam billowing around him as his flaming body reached temperatures hot enough to vaporize the specialized freezing compound. "Let's turn up the heat." With his mobility restored, Ben directed a focused flame at the weakened points in the stasis chamber, carefully controlling the temperature to avoid harming the necrophrygian inside. The cracks widened under the thermal stress until finally, with a sound like shattering glass, the containment failed. Cold mist poured out as the chamber broke open, the weakened necrophrygian floating free for the first time in what appeared to have been months of captivity. "No!" Freeze shouted, abandoning his battle with Batman to fire desperately at the escaping alien. "The specimen is critical to our operation." Ben intercepted the freezing blast with a wall of flame, creating a barrier of steam between Freeze and the liberated necrophrygian. "It's not a specimen, it's a living being." The freed alien hovered unsteadily, clearly weakened from its ordeal but now emanating a soft blue glow as its natural powers began to regenerate. It turned toward Ben, studying Heatblast's fiery form with evident curiosity despite its weakened state. "Can you understand me?" Ben asked, maintaining the flame barrier while Batman and Nightwing continued engaging the remaining guards. The necrophrygian nodded slowly, then spoke in a whisper-like voice that somehow carried through the chaos. "You are like me, but not. I can transform into different aliens," Ben explained quickly. "Including your species. We're here to help you." The alien seemed to consider this, then turned its gaze toward Freeze. "He took from me cold energy, life force." Ben's anger flared, causing his flames to burn hotter. "That ends now. Can you move? We need to get you out of here." "I can, Phase," the necrophrygian replied, its body already becoming slightly translucent as it accessed its natural ability to pass through solid matter. "But, weakened." "Stay behind me," Ben instructed, moving to protect the alien as Batman finally managed to overload Freeze's suit systems, forcing the villain to one knee. "This isn't over, Batman," Freeze declared, his suit venting excess heat as emergency systems engaged. "The project will proceed with or without this specimen." "What project, Victor?" Batman demanded, closing in on the temporarily disabled villain. "Who are you working for?" Before Freeze could answer, the warehouse lights suddenly cut out, plunging the building into darkness broken only by the glow from Ben's flaming body and the emergency lights on Freeze's suit. "What now?" Nightwing muttered, instantly on alert as he moved to a defensive position. A deep, rumbling sound vibrated through the structure, something between machinery and an organic growl. The temperature, already cold from Freeze's technology, dropped even further. "Unknown variable detected," Freeze stated, his scientific mind immediately analyzing the new development. "This is not part of our operation." Ben felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Something was wrong, very wrong. The freed necrophrygian sensed it too, drawing closer to Ben despite his fiery form being naturally uncomfortable for the cold-based alien. "Danger," it whispered. "Great danger comes." The wall of the warehouse suddenly tore open like paper, metal beams twisting as if made of cloth. Through the massive hole stepped a towering figure that made Ben's blood run cold despite Heatblast's internal heat. Nearly 9 feet tall with green skin, tentacle-like growths on his face, and armor that seemed fused to his muscular body, the being radiated malevolence and power. Red eyes fixed immediately on Ben, narrowing with obvious recognition. At last, the creature rumbled, voice like grinding stone. "The Omnitrix bearer." Ben stared in horror at the monstrous figure. "Vilgax," he whispered, recognizing the warlord from Grandpa Max's descriptions. Batman and Nightwing immediately shifted positions, moving to flank the new threat while assessing its capabilities. Freeze's men, recognizing something far beyond their experience, began retreating toward emergency exits. The alien conqueror, Freeze observed with clinical detachment despite his compromised position. "Your arrival was not anticipated in our timetable." Vilgax ignored him completely, focus entirely on Ben. "I have tracked the Omnitrix across 12 star systems, child. Your primitive attempts to mask its signal merely delayed the inevitable." Ben's mind raced. This was the ultimate threat Grandpa Max had warned about, the ruthless warlord who destroyed planets in his quest for power. And now he was here, in Gotham, with only Batman, Nightwing, and a weakened alien between him and the Omnitrix. "Batman," Ben called, maintaining his heat blast form between Vilgax and the injured Necrophrygian, "we need to protect the alien and get civilians clear." Batman was already moving, understanding the shift in priorities immediately. "Nightwing, evacuation protocol. 5-block radius." Nightwing nodded, firing his grapple toward a window. "On it." "What about you two?" "We'll handle Vilgax," Batman replied, his voice betraying no fear despite facing an opponent of clearly superhuman abilities. Vilgax laughed, a chilling sound like rocks in a grinder. "You? A human in costume? You are not even worthy of notice." To demonstrate his point, Vilgax moved with shocking speed for his size, crossing the room in a blur and backhanding Batman with casual force. The blow sent the Dark Knight flying across the warehouse to crash into a stack of equipment. "Bruce!" Ben shouted in horror, momentarily forgetting code names in his panic. Vilgax turned his attention back to Ben. "Your protector falls easily. Now, child, you will surrender the Omnitrix, or I will take it, along with the hand it's attached to." Ben's fear transformed into determination. A year of training with Batman had taught him to channel fear into focus. "Not happening, squid face." He unleashed a massive blast of fire directly at Vilgax, pouring everything Heat Blast could generate into the attack. The flames engulfed the warlord completely, the heat intense enough to melt steel. When Ben finally paused, breathing hard from the exertion, the smoke cleared to reveal Vilgax standing unmoved, his armor glowing slightly from the heat but otherwise unaffected. "Pyronite thermal output," Vilgax noted dismissively. "Insufficient." Before Ben could react, Vilgax closed the distance between them with that same unnatural speed, grabbing him by the throat and lifting him off the ground. Even Heatblast's burning body seemed to cause the warlord no discomfort. "Your transformations are incomplete, child," Vilgax observed. "Mere shadows of the species they mimic." In the hands of a worthy wielder, the Omnitrix could access the full potential of these forms. Ben struggled in the iron grip, his flames dimming as Vilgax's squeeze cut off his ability to concentrate. Through darkening vision, he saw Batman rising from the wreckage, already throwing specialized batarangs at Vilgax's exposed face. The projectiles exploded on contact, releasing a sticky compound that briefly covered Vilgax's eyes. It was enough distraction for the warlord to loosen his grip, allowing Ben to break free and drop to the floor. "The Necrophrygian," Batman called to Ben as he pressed the momentary advantage. "Get it to safety." Ben nodded, turning to where the weakened alien hovered. "Come on. We need to go." "Wait," the Necrophrygian whispered. "I can help." It drifted forward despite its weakened state, facing Vilgax who was already clearing the compound from his eyes with growing rage. "Insects," the warlord roared. "You delay the inevitable." The Necrophrygian exhaled a blast of its freezing breath directly at Vilgax. Unlike Ben's fire, this attack seemed to have an effect, ice forming on the warlord's armor and temporarily slowing his movements. "Interesting," Freeze commented from where he remained observing, making no move to either help or hinder any party. The specimen's natural cold generation affects the alien's armor where conventional freezing technology does not. Ben saw an opportunity. If fire alone didn't work, and the Necrophrygian's cold alone only slowed Vilgax down, perhaps. "Batman," he called out. "Thermal shock. Like we used against Ivy's plants." Batman understood immediately, throwing a series of specialized freeze discs at Vilgax's legs while Ben, still as Heat Blast, concentrated fire on the same area. The rapid temperature change caused the metal in Vilgax's armor to contract and expand violently, creating stress fractures. Vilgax roared in anger as his mobility became compromised. "Enough games." He slammed a fist into the ground with such force that the entire warehouse shuddered, knocking everyone off balance. Using the moment of disruption, Vilgax activated something on his armor. A beam of energy shot from his wrist device toward the weakened Necrophrygian. No! Ben shouted, diving into the path of the beam without hesitation. The energy struck him instead, and immediately Ben felt the Omnitrix respond strangely. The symbol on his chest flashed erratically, and he was forcibly reverted to human form in a flash of red light. The Omnitrix responds to the recall signal, Vilgax observed with satisfaction. Your device recognizes its master, child. Ben struggled to his feet, the Omnitrix on his wrist flashing between red and green as it fought against whatever signal Vilgax was transmitting. Without his alien forms, he felt painfully vulnerable, but he stood his ground between Vilgax and the Necrophrygian nonetheless. I don't care what signals it responds to, Ben declared defiantly. The Omnitrix stays with me. Vilgax's expression might have been a smile, though it looked more like a predatory grimace. Brave words from a species so fragile. He raised his arm, weaponry extending from his armor. But ultimately meaningless. Before he could fire, Batman reappeared from the shadows, launching himself onto Vilgax's back and jamming a specialized device against the warlord's neck. Electricity coursed through the alien conqueror, targeting nerve clusters that Batman had apparently identified during the brief combat. Vilgax snarled in pain and annoyance, reaching back to grab Batman. But the distraction was enough for Ben to activate the Omnitrix again, fighting through its disrupted state to select a new transformation. Come on, work with me here, he muttered as the selection dial responded sluggishly. Finally, he managed to activate it, transforming in a flash of green light into Diamondhead, the crystalline alien whose body could withstand tremendous physical punishment. Round 2, Vilgax, Ben announced, forming his arms into crystalline blades. Vilgax flung Batman aside and faced Ben's new form with narrowed eyes. Petrosapien. Somewhat more durable, but still insufficient. The battle resumed with increased intensity. Vilgax's raw power and combat experience gave him a tremendous advantage, but the combined tactics of Batman, Ben, and the recovering Necrophrygian kept him off balance. Whenever he focused on one opponent, the others would strike from different angles. Meanwhile, Freeze had used the chaos to retreat with his remaining men, taking what equipment they could salvage from the operation. The scientist recognized a situation beyond his parameters when he saw it. We need to end this quickly, Batman called to Ben as they regrouped after a particularly violent exchange. Vilgax is holding back, testing your forms. When he decides to stop playing, this gets much worse. Ben nodded, breathing hard despite Diamondhead's enhanced endurance. We can't beat him head-on. We need a plan. The harbor, Batman suggested, nodding toward the large doors at the back of the warehouse that opened directly to the docks. Water might neutralize some of his technology. Worth a shot, Ben agreed, forming his crystalline hands into shields as Vilgax charged again. The warlord's fist crashed against Ben's defenses with bone-jarring force, driving him backward despite the anchoring crystals he'd grown from his feet into the floor. Your resistance is impressive for one so young, Vilgax admitted. The Omnitrix chose well. You will make a worthy first conquest when I claim it. Not gonna happen, Ben grunted, pushing back with all of Diamondhead's considerable strength. The Omnitrix stays with me. While they were locked in this contest of strength, Batman communicated something to the Necrophrygian, who nodded weakly before phasing through the floor. Whatever plan Batman had set in motion, Ben needed to buy time. You know what your problem is, Vilgax. Ben taunted, generating crystal shards that shot toward the warlord's face, forcing him to block. You talk way too much for someone who's supposed to be all scary and powerful. The taunt had its intended effect. Vilgax's eyes narrowed in rage, and he abandoned his measured approach for a direct assault. Insolent child. I will tear the Omnitrix from your broken body. Ben used Diamondhead's abilities to create a crystalline slide behind himself, letting Vilgax's charge propel both of them backward toward the harbor doors. Batman, understanding Ben's improvisation, threw explosive batarangs at the door controls, causing them to blast open as Ben and Vilgax careened toward them. They crashed through the opening onto the dock beyond, the night air filled with the sounds of police sirens as Nightwing's evacuation protocol brought GCPD to the area. Ben rolled free from Vilgax's grasp, coming up in a fighting stance at the edge of the pier. "End of the line, squid face," Ben announced, gesturing to the water below. "Hope you can swim." Vilgax rose to his full height, seemingly unimpressed by the change in battlefield. "Water is no obstacle to me, child. My species evolved in the deepest oceans of." His boast was cut short as the dock beneath him suddenly frosted over, ice spreading rapidly across the wooden planks. The Necrophrygian phased up through the dock, having circled underneath to attack from below as Batman had instructed. The alien exhaled another freezing breath, targeting the already stressed points in Vilgax's armor that Ben and Batman had identified earlier. The warlord's movement slowed as ice formed in the joints of his armor, restricting his mobility. "Now, Ben." Batman called, appearing at the warehouse exit with something in his hands, one of Freeze's abandoned cold generators, repurposed and overcharged. Ben understood the plan instantly. He created a massive crystal barrier between himself and Vilgax just as Batman activated the device, sending a wave of extreme cold across the dock. The temperature plummeted to near absolute zero in seconds, flash freezing everything in its path. The Necrophrygian phased safely through the attack, its natural physiology unaffected by the cold. Ben's crystal barrier protected him from the worst of it. But Vilgax, already compromised by the targeted freezing, took the full brunt of the blast. Ice encased the warlord completely, forming a glacier-like prison around his massive form. For a moment, it seemed they had succeeded in neutralizing the threat. Then hairline cracks appeared across the ice. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, the frozen prison began to shatter from within. "That won't hold him for long," Batman observed grimly, already reaching for another device from his belt. Plan B. Before he could deploy whatever backup strategy he had prepared, a new sound cut through the night, the high-pitched whine of teleportation technology similar to what they'd encountered with the mysterious sample collectors months earlier. A beam of energy shot down from the sky, enveloping Vilgax's partially freed form. The warlord's eyes locked onto Ben one last time as the teleportation effect took hold. "This is merely a delay, child," Vilgax growled as his body began to dematerialize. "I will return for the Omnitrix. And next time, I will not underestimate you or your protectors." With those ominous words, Vilgax vanished completely, teleported away by what must have been his ship in orbit above Earth. Ben slumped to his knees, Diamondhead's crystalline body reverting to human form as the Omnitrix timed out. The full weight of what they'd just faced hit him all at once. "He's gone. Just like that?" Ben asked, staring at the space where Vilgax had stood moments before. Batman approached, his cape damaged and frost covering portions of his suit from the extreme cold attack. "Tactical retreat. He underestimated us and wasn't prepared for a prolonged engagement. But he'll be back," Ben said quietly. "Yes," Batman acknowledged without sugarcoating it. "And next time he'll come with a more comprehensive strategy." The Necrophrygian drifted over to them, looking somewhat recovered now that it was free from the harvesting equipment. "Thank you, for my freedom," it whispered in that same breathy voice. "The cold one. Freeze, he captured me when my migration brought me to this world." "Migration?" Ben asked, curious despite his exhaustion. "My kind, travel between stars when it is time to reproduce," the alien explained. "I was separated from my group, captured. My offspring, never born." Ben felt a surge of anger at what Freeze had done, trapping a peaceful traveler for his own purposes. "I'm sorry that happened to you. Are you strong enough to return to space?" The Necrophrygian nodded slowly. "The cold energy returns with freedom. Soon I will be strong enough to leave. We need to secure the site and collect evidence," Batman stated, ever practical even after an alien warlord encounter. Nightwing has established a perimeter with GCPD, but we have limited time before federal agencies arrive. The mention of federal involvement reminded Ben of something important. We need to call Grandpa Max. He should know about Vilgax, and maybe he can help our new friend here. Batman nodded, already activating his comm link. Alfred, contact Max Tennyson. Priority Alpha. Vilgax has made direct contact. As they began securing the area and collecting critical evidence from Freeze's abandoned operation, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. Vilgax wasn't a distant threat anymore, he was real, terrifying, and fixated on claiming the Omnitrix. And yet, they had faced him and survived. Not just survived, but forced him to retreat. The realization gave Ben a strange confidence despite the gravity of the situation. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. Dawn broke over Wayne Manor as Ben sat on the medical table in the Batcave, allowing Alfred to treat the minor injuries he'd sustained during the confrontation with Vilgax. Bruce, cowl removed but still in the rest of his Batman gear, was briefing Grandpa Max via video conference while Nightwing, now revealed as Dick Grayson, Bruce's first ward, examined pieces of technology salvaged from Freeze's operation. So Freeze was harvesting the Necrophrygian's natural cold-generating abilities, Dick summarized, looking up from a partially disassembled device. Using alien biology to power some kind of large-scale freezing technology. The components suggest a delivery system capable of affecting several city blocks simultaneously, Bruce added, joining them after finishing his call with Max. Potentially dropping temperatures low enough to flash freeze organic matter instantly. Ben winced as Alfred applied antiseptic to a cut on his forehead. A freeze bomb for the whole city? That's way beyond Freeze's usual MO. Victor was working for someone else, Bruce confirmed. The same master referenced by our sample collectors, most likely. And connected to Vilgax somehow? Dick suggested. Bruce shook his head. Unclear. Vilgax's arrival seemed to surprise Freeze as much as it did us. Possibly competing interests targeting the Omnitrix from different angles. Great, Ben sighed. So I've got multiple mysterious bad guys after me, plus a crazy alien warlord who can punch Batman across a room without breaking a sweat. Technically, Master Bruce allowed himself to be struck to assess the opponent's capabilities, Alfred corrected primly, applying a small bandage to Ben's forehead. A strategy he employs with frustrating regularity, much to my dismay. Dick laughed. Some things never change. The important thing, Bruce continued, ignoring their commentary, is that we prevented Freeze from completing his device and rescued the captive Necrophrygian. Max is sending a plumber team to escort it safely off-planet once it recovers sufficient strength. Ben nodded, relieved that at least one part of the night's mission had a happy ending. So what's our next move? How do we prepare for when Vilgax comes back? Bruce studied Ben for a moment before responding. We continue your training, focusing on countering Vilgax's observed abilities. We enhance the Omnitrix masking technology to resist his tracking methods. And we identify whoever Freeze was working for. Business as usual, then, Ben remarked with a small smile. Just with higher stakes. I wouldn't say usual, Dick interjected, leaning against a nearby console. Bruce letting you transform in the field, working as a real partner, that's new territory for him. Bruce shot Dick a look that would have intimidated most people, but his former ward just grinned in response. What? It's true. You're different with Ben than you were with me at that age. Less, broody dictator, more actual mentor. The circumstances are different, Bruce replied evenly. Ben's abilities require a more adaptive approach. Dick snorted. Right. Nothing to do with personal growth or learning from past mistakes. Ben watched this exchange with fascination. He'd heard about Dick Grayson, of course, Bruce's first ward who had become Robin and later Nightwing, but this was his first time seeing them interact. Despite the subtle tension, there was obvious underlying respect and even affection between them. Master Dick has a point, Alfred commented as he packed away the medical supplies. Your approach with Master Ben has been notably different. Dare I say, more balanced. Bruce's expression remained neutral, but Ben had learned to read the microscopic changes that indicated his thoughts. Right now, he seemed uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Ben requires different handling than Dick did, Bruce finally stated. Different abilities, different temperament, different circumstances. Different guardian, Ben added quietly. All eyes turned to him, and he felt his cheeks warm slightly under the attention. What I mean is, you're different now than you were when you took in Dick, right? People change. Even Batman. A surprised expression flickered across Bruce's face before he controlled it, replaced by something that might almost have been approval. An astute observation. Kid's smart, Dick agreed with a warm smile toward Ben. He's good for you, Bruce. Makes you act almost human sometimes. Before Bruce could respond to that provocation, the cave's alert system activated, signaling the arrival of a visitor through one of the secure entrances. That's odd, Alfred remarked. We're not expecting anyone at this hour, are we? The question was answered moments later as the elevator doors opened to reveal Gwen Tennyson, Ben's cousin, alongside Grandpa Max. Ben's face lit up at the sight of them. Gwen, he exclaimed, jumping off the medical table and rushing to greet them. What are you doing here? Nice to see you too, doofus, Gwen replied with a smile that belied the insult. At 11 years old, she had grown taller since Ben last saw her at Christmas, her red hair now reaching past her shoulders. Grandpa Max said you had an alien invasion or something, so naturally I had to come see what mess you've gotten yourself into this time. Max placed a hand on Gwen's shoulder. I was visiting Gwen's family when Bruce called about Vilgax. Figured this situation warranted bringing the whole Tennyson contingent. Max filled me in on the drive over, Gwen explained, looking around the Batcave with undisguised curiosity. Alien warlords, ice villains, necrophrygians, just another day in Ben Tennyson's crazy life, huh? Ben grinned. Hey, at least it's never boring. Max Tennyson, Dick stepped forward, extending his hand to the older man. I've heard a lot about you. Dick Grayson. The first Robin, Max acknowledged, shaking his hand. Now Nightwing. Your reputation precedes you as well. All good things, I hope. Mostly, Max replied with a twinkle in his eye that made Dick laugh. Bruce, meanwhile, had moved to the main computer, already pulling up files and schematics. Max, I've compiled everything we recovered from Freeze's operation. The technology integrates alien and Earth components in ways that suggest extensive knowledge of both. Let me see, Max joined him at the console, slipping easily into professional mode. While the adults analyzed the technical data, Ben gave Gwen a quick tour of the Batcave's main areas, proudly showing off the training facilities where he'd spent countless hours over the past year. So you actually fight crime now? Gwen asked, examining Ben's field uniform displayed in one of the cases. Like, with Batman? When he lets me, Ben confirmed. Which is more often these days. Usually I'm support and reconnaissance, but sometimes I get to transform if the situation calls for it. That's actually kind of cool, Gwen admitted reluctantly. Though I still can't believe Batman puts up with you. Does he know you leave your dirty socks everywhere and can't spell necessary to save your life? Hey. I've improved a lot. Bruce makes me study almost as much as I train. He's kind of a hard case about academics. As well he should be, Alfred interjected smoothly as he passed by with a tray of refreshments for the expanded group. Though Master Ben's progress reports from Gotham Academy have shown marked improvement over the past semester. You go to fancy private school now too? Gwen raised an eyebrow. Wow, you've gone full rich kid. Ben rolled his eyes. Trust me, it's not as fun as it sounds. The uniform itches, the teachers are super strict, and most of the kids are total snobs. Their banter was interrupted as Bruce called everyone to the main platform. His expression was more serious than usual, which was saying something. Max and I have identified components in Freeze's device that match known signatures from a group called the Forever Knights, he announced. An organization with a long history of acquiring and weaponizing alien technology. I've had run-ins with their operatives during my plumber days, Max added grimly. They present themselves as a medieval-themed secret society, but their true purpose is acquiring power through alien tech, which they ironically claim to be fighting against. So these Forever Knight guys hired Freeze to build them a citywide freeze bomb using alien biology? Dick summarized. What's the endgame? Unknown, Bruce replied. But given their ideology and the scale of the device Freeze was constructing, likely something catastrophic intended to draw attention to what they perceive as the alien threat to Earth. Which is super hypocritical considering they use alien tech themselves, Ben pointed out. Indeed, Max agreed. They justify it as using the enemy's weapons against them, but it's really about power and control. Gwen, who had been quietly observing the exchange, suddenly spoke up. So we've got these Forever Knight people hunting alien tech, mysterious guys in hazmat suits collecting DNA samples from Ben's transformations, and now Vilgax showing up to take the Omnitrix. Is anyone else thinking these might all be connected? The adults exchanged surprised looks at Gwen's insight. Bruce's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. It's possible, he acknowledged. The timing of Vilgax's arrival immediately after we intervened in Freeze's operation suggests he may have been monitoring the situation. Or, Max suggested, the Forever Knight's activities with the Necrophrygian might have drawn Vilgax's attention to Earth, helping him pinpoint the Omnitrix's location. Ben felt a chill at the implications. So I might not have been the only target. Vilgax could be after all alien tech on Earth. Which makes him a potential threat to the Forever Knights as well, Dick realized. They might not even know they've attracted the attention of a planetary conqueror. Bruce was already typing rapidly, pulling up maps and data points on the main screen. If the Forever Knights are behind Freeze's operation, they'll have a backup plan now that we've interrupted this attempt. We need to identify potential secondary targets and staging areas. I can help with that, Max offered. I still have access to some old plumber monitoring systems that might have picked up unusual energy signatures matching their technology. As the adults fell into planning mode, Ben felt Gwen touch his arm lightly. You okay? She asked quietly. With all of this, I mean. Alien warlords and secret societies is a lot, even for someone with a watch that turns them into monsters. Ben started to brush off her concern with his usual bravado, but something stopped him. This was Gwen, his cousin, occasional nemesis, but also one of the few people who knew him before the Omnitrix, before Batman, before everything changed. It's scary, he admitted in a low voice. Vilgax was different from any bad guy I've faced before. Even Bruce was outmatched, and he's never outmatched. Gwen nodded, her expression uncharacteristically serious. But you stood up to him anyway. Grandpa told me on the drive over, you protected that alien moth thing even when you were back in human form. Ben shrugged, embarrassed by her implied praise. Anyone would have done that. No, they wouldn't have, Gwen countered firmly. Most people would have run. Even with all your annoying qualities, and there are many, you've always been stupidly brave, Ben. He grinned at her backhanded compliment. Thanks, dweeb. I think. Their moment was interrupted as Bruce called Ben over to the computer. Ben, I need you to review these Forever Knight locations we've identified. See if any match places you've encountered unusual activity during patrols. Ben joined the adults at the console, studying the map of Gotham with markers indicating suspected Forever Knight facilities. His year of patrolling the city with Batman had given him an intimate knowledge of Gotham's geography and activity patterns. This one, he pointed to a warehouse in the industrial district. We investigated unusual power readings there about a month ago, but found nothing. And this museum had a break-in where nothing obvious was stolen, but Batman thought the security system had been accessed. Bruce nodded approvingly. Good. Those align with other indicators we've identified. So what's the plan? Dick asked. Coordinated strikes on multiple locations. Reconnaissance first, Bruce replied. We need more information before engaging directly. Especially with Vilgax potentially in the equation. I suggest a two-pronged approach, Max offered. I can take point on tracking Vilgax's ship movements with my plumber tech, while your team focuses on the Forever Night angle here in Gotham. Bruce considered this before nodding agreement. Efficient division of resources. What about me? Gwen asked. I want to help too. You can help me with the tracking systems, Max told her. You've got a good eye for patterns, and the equipment isn't too complex. And me? Ben looked to Bruce expectantly. Rest and recovery today, Bruce instructed firmly. Then specialized training to prepare for both Forever Nights and potential Vilgax countermeasures. Ben started to protest but was cut off by a massive yawn that undermined his argument completely. The night's events and battle had taken more out of him than he wanted to admit. Fine, he conceded. But I want to be included in whatever comes next. These guys are targeting me and the Omnitrix, I should be part of stopping them. Bruce studied him for a moment before responding. You will be. But preparation comes first. Always with the preparation, Ben muttered, though without real annoyance. A year under Batman's tutelage had convinced him of the value of Bruce's methodical approach, even if his natural impulse was still to charge indirectly. Why don't you get some sleep? Gwen suggested. You look like you're about to fall over, and your zombie impression is even uglier than your normal face. Such concern, Ben replied sarcastically, but he was already heading toward the elevator. Wake me if Vilgax comes back or anything explodes. Wouldn't dream of doing otherwise, Master Ben, Alfred assured him with gentle irony. Perhaps a late breakfast when you awake. I believe your cousin mentioned your fondness for chocolate chip pancakes. Ben's tired expression brightened. You're the best, Alfred. As the elevator doors closed, Ben caught a final glimpse of the scene below. Bruce, Dick, Max, and Gwen gathered around the computer, already deep in planning mode. It was a strange sight, this merging of his two worlds, the Tennyson family and the Bat family united against a common threat. Whatever came next, Ben realized, he was no longer caught between those worlds. They had become a single, unusual, but undeniably powerful unit. And for the first time since losing his parents, he felt completely at home. 3 days of intensive preparation followed the encounter with Vilgax and the discovery of the Forever Night's involvement. The Batcave hummed with constant activity as Bruce coordinated with Max on strategy while Dick worked on equipment upgrades designed to counter the Knight's technology. Ben divided his time between specialized training sessions with Bruce and helping Max and Gwen analyze alien energy signatures detected across Gotham. The Omnitrix had been temporarily locked down except for controlled testing, its signal masked by the improved technology they developed based on their encounter with Vilgax's tracking systems. On the 4th day, they finally identified a primary target, an abandoned subway station the Forever Knights had converted into a hidden base. Thermal imaging shows at least 20 individuals inside, Bruce reported during the final briefing. Power consumption suggests significant technological activity, consistent with the energy signatures we detected from Freeze's prototype. They've accelerated their timeline, Max noted grimly. Probably in response to losing the Necrophrygian power source. Which means they've either found an alternative power source or modified their approach, Dick added. Either way, we need to move tonight. Ben studied the schematics of the subway station displayed on the main screen. What about Vilgax? Any sign of him returning? Max shook his head. Nothing on the deep space monitors. He's likely regrouping, preparing a more comprehensive strategy based on what he learned during your encounter. So we focus on the immediate threat, Bruce decided. The Forever Knights, whatever they're building, and whoever this master is that's coordinating their efforts. What's the plan? Ben asked, unconsciously straightening his posture in what Dick had teasingly called his junior Batman stance. Bruce activated a 3D model of the subway station. 4-person infiltration team. Max will coordinate from mobile command with Gwen. Nightwing and I will enter from opposite sides to divide their attention, while Ben, let me guess, Ben interrupted. Observation only. Stay back and stay safe. To his surprise, Bruce shook his head. No. You'll be our primary infiltrator. Ben blinked in shock. Really? The ventilation system is too small for Nightwing or me to navigate, Bruce explained practically. But you, as gray matter, could move through it undetected and access their central control room to gather intelligence before we engage. Gray matter. Ben's eyes widened. You're actually authorizing the super-smart alien for a critical mission component? Not just lab work. Your strategic value isn't limited to combat forms, Bruce replied. Gray matter's intelligence and size make him ideal for this phase of the operation. Ben couldn't hide his grin. After months of being limited to using gray matter only in controlled environments because the form was too valuable for field risks, this felt like a massive vote of confidence. I won't let you down, he promised seriously. You'd better not, Gwen chimed in from where she'd been helping Max calibrate equipment. Because I'm stuck in the van while you get to do the fun part. Someone needs to monitor the alien detection grid, Max reminded her gently. Your pattern recognition skills are better than mine. The subtle praise mollified Gwen somewhat, though she still shot Ben a look that clearly said, you'd better appreciate this opportunity. Deployment in 1 hour, Bruce announced, ending the briefing phase. Final equipment checks and communication tests now. As everyone moved to their assigned preparations, Dick fell into step beside Ben. First major operation with the full team, he commented with a grin. Excited? Nervous, Ben admitted. Gray matter is super smart, but not exactly combat ready if things go sideways. That's what the rest of us are for, Dick assured him. Besides, Bruce wouldn't assign you the role if he didn't think you could handle it. He may not say it much, but he's impressed with your progress. He is. Ben couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. Dick's expression softened slightly. Let me tell you something about Bruce. He sets impossibly high standards because that's what he demands of himself. When he actually trusts someone with a critical mission component. That's his version of a gold star and a trophy combined. Ben absorbed this insight, a warm feeling spreading through his chest. Thanks, Dick. For telling me that. Hey, what are honorary big brothers for? Dick replied with an easy smile. Now let's go stop some medieval alien tech collectors from freezing Gotham, yeah. Just another Tuesday night with the Bat family, Ben agreed with a grin. The abandoned subway station loomed silent and seemingly deserted in Gotham's Old Town district, its entrance boarded up and marked with city condemnation notices. From the unmarked van parked a block away, however, specialized scanning equipment revealed the truth, a hive of activity hidden beneath the city streets. Thermal signatures confirmed 23 individuals inside, Max reported, studying the displays as Ben, Batman, and Nightwing prepared for entry. Concentrated in the main platform area and what used to be the ticket hall. Power readings? Batman asked, making final adjustments to his utility belt. Significant, Gwen answered, monitoring a different set of instruments. Whatever they're building down there, it's drawing massive energy. Ben checked the Omnitrix, now augmented with the enhanced masking technology and set for his first transformation of the night. The device glowed green, ready for activation. Remember, Batman addressed him directly, reconnaissance only in this phase. Transform, navigate the ventilation system to the control room, gather intelligence on their operation, then report back. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Got it, Ben nodded, appreciating that Batman was treating him as a full team member rather than a sidekick. In and out, quiet as a, well, gray matter. Nightwing groaned at the pun. Let's hope your infiltration skills are better than your jokes. Communications check, Max interrupted, handing each of them specialized earpieces. These are shielded against common scanning technology. They should keep you connected even if the Knights have standard jamming equipment. Once all systems were confirmed operational, the team moved out. Batman and Nightwing would access the station through maintenance entrances on opposite sides, creating a diversion if needed, while Ben would enter through a small grate that connected to the original ventilation system. Ben reached the access point first, a rusted grate at street level that had once provided air circulation to the underground platforms. Kneeling beside it, he activated the Omnitrix, cycling to Grey Matter's silhouette. Going gray, he murmured into his comm, then pressed down the dial. Green light flashed, muted by the masking technology, as Ben transformed into the small, frog-like Galvan form. His consciousness expanded instantly, the enhanced intelligence of Grey Matter analyzing his surroundings with remarkable precision. Transformation successful, he reported, his voice higher pitched in this form. Beginning infiltration. The rusted grate, which would have required tools for a human to remove, yielded easily to Grey Matter's surprisingly strong fingers and understanding of leverage points. Ben slipped inside, navigating the dusty ventilation shaft with ease. Fascinating infrastructure, he commented as he moved. I can detect at least 3 distinct modification phases to the original subway design, with the most recent alterations utilizing non-standard metallurgical components, likely alien-derived. Focus on the mission parameters, Batman reminded him, though without rebuke. Right, sorry, Ben replied. Grey Matter's enhanced intelligence tended to notice and analyze everything, sometimes leading to distraction by interesting technical details. Approaching Junction Point Alpha. He navigated through the complex ductwork, making turns based on the memorized schematics and his own observations of air flow and sound patterns. Within minutes, he had traversed what would have been a significant distance for his human form. I detect significant electromagnetic activity ahead, he reported quietly. Consistent with advanced computing systems and power regulation equipment. You're approaching what should be the old station master's office, Nightwing confirmed from his position. According to our intel, they've converted it into their control center. Ben continued forward until he reached a grate overlooking what was indeed a sophisticated control room. 3 individuals in what appeared to be modernized suits of armor, forever Knights, presumably, worked at stations monitoring various displays and equipment. Visual confirmation on control room, Ben whispered. 3 Knights present, all wearing tech-enhanced armor. Multiple display screens showing, wait. What is it? Batman's voice came through the comm. One of the displays is showing what appears to be a weather pattern simulation for Gotham Bay, Ben observed, Grey Matter's enhanced vision capturing details even through the grate. They're modeling some kind of extreme temperature effect on the water. Can you get closer? We need to understand what they're planning, Max urged from the command van. Ben carefully removed the ventilation grate, setting it aside without making a sound. Using Grey Matter's sticky fingers, he climbed down the wall behind a bank of equipment, remaining hidden while positioning himself to better view the screens. It's a freezing cascade effect, he realized, analyzing the simulations. They're planning to flash freeze Gotham Bay, creating a chain reaction that would extend up the river and into the harbor. The temperature drop would be catastrophic for the city's climate. An artificial ice age, Batman concluded grimly. Consistent with the components Freeze was developing. But why? Nightwing questioned. What's their endgame? One of the Knights in the control room provided the answer as he reported to another. The cooling array is at 92% capacity, Sir Driscoll. The Master's calculations indicate we will achieve total harbor crystallization within 30 minutes of activation. Excellent, the Knight addressed as Driscoll responded. Once demonstrated, the world will have no choice but to acknowledge the power we wield. Our demands for alien containment will be taken seriously. So that's their game, Ben whispered. They're going to freeze Gotham Bay as a demonstration, then threaten to do the same to other cities unless their anti-alien agenda is implemented. Terrorists, Batman stated flatly. Using alien technology to justify alien persecution. The irony seems lost on them, Ben commented dryly. His observation was interrupted as one of the knights suddenly looked up, head tilting as if listening. Sir Driscoll, the motion sensors in Section 5 just registered an anomaly. Nightwing, Batman's voice came through the comm, your position has been compromised. Working on it, Nightwing replied tersely, the sound of muffled combat audible in the background. The control room erupted into activity as alarms began to sound. Driscoll issued rapid commands, security teams to Section 5. Accelerate the countdown sequence, we launch in 10 minutes. They're moving up their timeline, Ben reported urgently. What do you want me to do? Hold position, Batman instructed. We need to locate the main cooling array before engaging. Ben watched as the knights worked frantically at their stations. One pulled up a schematic that Grey Matter's enhanced brain immediately analyzed and memorized, the layout of their freeze device and its key vulnerabilities. I've got the schematics, Ben reported. The primary array is located on the main platform, drawing power from modified generators in what used to be the train tunnels. There are 3 critical junction points, disrupt any one of them, and the whole system fails. Transmitting tactical data to your HUDs now, Max confirmed from the command center, receiving Ben's information through the comm system. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Through the control room monitors, Ben could see Nightwing engaged with multiple knights while Batman was now visible entering from the opposite side, creating a two-front distraction. Time to join the party? Ben asked hopefully. Negative, Batman replied firmly. Your intelligence gathering is complete. Extract to the rendezvous point. Ben started to protest but stopped as he noticed something on one of the monitoring screens that the knights had overlooked in their focus on the intruders, a power surge in an area that shouldn't have been active according to the schematics. Wait, I'm picking up an anomalous energy reading in the eastern tunnel, he reported. It's not part of their freeze device, but it's drawing significant power. Can you identify the source? Max asked. Negative, but the signature is familiar somehow. Grey Matter's enhanced mind searched for the pattern connection. It resembles, oh no. What is it? Batman demanded. It's similar to the quantum signature Vilgax's teleportation technology generated, Ben realized with growing alarm. I think someone's trying to establish a transmission link to his ship. This changed everything. If the Forever Knights were communicating with Vilgax, willingly or unwittingly, the threat level had just increased exponentially. I need to investigate that signal, Ben decided, already moving toward a different ventilation shaft that would lead toward the eastern tunnel. Ben, stick to the extraction plan, Batman ordered. This is potentially a connection to Vilgax, which means it's directly related to the Omnitrix and me, Ben countered, slipping into a new duct. Grey Matter is the perfect form to analyze it without being detected. Trust me. There was a moment of tense silence before Batman responded. You have 5 minutes. Then extract, regardless of findings. Copy that, Ben acknowledged, moving rapidly through the ventilation system. He reached the eastern tunnel section quickly, finding a maintenance alcove that had been converted into what appeared to be a communication station. A single knight operated sophisticated equipment that was definitely not Earth technology, sleek, purple-hued devices that pulsed with energy. Grey Matter's enhanced senses detected the quantum frequency the equipment was generating, a carrier wave designed to penetrate Earth's atmosphere and reach orbital distances. But something wasn't right about the configuration. This doesn't make sense, Ben whispered. They're broadcasting on a frequency that would attract Vilgax's attention, but it's not configured for actual communication. It's more like a beacon. They're deliberately drawing him here. Max sounded alarmed. Why would the Forever Knights want to attract the attention of an alien warlord when their stated mission is anti-alien? Unless they don't know who they're signaling, Gwen's voice cut in unexpectedly. Maybe someone told them this would contact a different party. Ben's Grey Matter brain processed this possibility, rapidly connecting dots. The Master, they keep referencing. What if they're being manipulated by someone with a different agenda? Someone who wants Vilgax to come to Earth? A third player, Batman concluded. Using the knights as unwitting pawns. Ben studied the equipment more carefully, noting details that confirmed his suspicion. This technology isn't consistent with the other Forever Knight equipment I've observed. It's more advanced, and the configuration has safeguards that would prevent the operators from fully understanding its purpose. As if on cue, the communication arrays suddenly pulsed more intensely, and a display screen flickered to life, showing static that gradually resolved into an image that made Ben's blood run cold, Vilgax's face, his red eyes glaring from the screen. Connection established, the alien warlord's voice rumbled through the speakers. Report. The knight operating the equipment straightened respectfully. My lord, we have encountered resistance as you predicted. The Batman and his associates have infiltrated our facility. And the boy? Vilgax demanded. Is he present? We believe so, my lord. Security detected an anomalous small intruder consistent with your description of the Galvan form. Ben froze in his hiding spot. The knights weren't just aware of Vilgax, they were working for him directly. The Master they referred to was the alien warlord himself. Maintain your deception until I arrive, Vilgax instructed. The freeze device is irrelevant, merely a lure to draw out the Omnitrix bearer. Continue the countdown to maintain the illusion. As you command, Lord Vilgax, the knight bowed slightly. How long until your arrival? My ship will achieve optimal teleportation position in 8 minutes, Vilgax replied. Be prepared. The communication cut off, leaving Ben in shocked silence for a moment before he urgently reported to the team, we've been played. The Forever Knights, at least some of them, are working directly for Vilgax. The freeze device is just a distraction to lure us here. Confirm that intelligence, Batman demanded, sounds of combat audible behind his voice. Are all knights complicit, or is this a splinter faction? Ben quickly assessed the evidence, Grey Matter's intellect processing the implications. Based on what I've observed, it's likely a small faction within the knights. The one called Driscoll and his immediate subordinates genuinely believe in their mission. But this communication operative and probably others are Vilgax's agents, using the Knight's agenda as cover. A classic infiltration and manipulation strategy, Max noted grimly. We've seen Vilgax employ similar tactics on other worlds. We need to abort the mission and evacuate, Nightwing suggested. If Vilgax is inbound, we're walking into a trap. Negative, Batman countered. We still need to disable the freeze device. Regardless of Vilgax's involvement, we can't risk it activating. Ben's mind raced through options, Grey Matter's intelligence analyzing multiple scenarios simultaneously. I have the schematics memorized. If I can reach the main control junction, I can reconfigure it to self-neutralize. Too dangerous, Batman replied immediately. Extract now. Nightwing and I will handle the device. But I'm already closer to the main platform than either of you, Ben argued. And Grey Matter can reprogram their systems in seconds. It's the most efficient approach. A moment of silence followed as Batman clearly calculated risks against benefits. 2 minutes, he finally allowed. Then transform to XLR8 and extract immediately. No exceptions. Copy that, Ben acknowledged, already moving through the ventilation system toward the main platform where the freeze device was located. He emerged onto a maintenance ledge overlooking what had once been the subway platform but was now dominated by a massive apparatus, coils of specialized tubing connected to what appeared to be a modified version of Freeze's technology, scaled up dramatically. Knights in full armor guarded the device while technicians made final adjustments. Ben analyzed the structure, identifying the control junction that regulated the power flow. It was located on the far side of the platform, partially shielded by equipment but accessible to someone Grey Matter's size. Moving with the stealth his small form afforded, Ben navigated along pipes and behind equipment, avoiding detection as he made his way toward the junction. The sounds of combat grew louder, Batman and Nightwing engaging the knights to create a diversion. He reached the junction with 30 seconds to spare in his allotted time. The control system was sophisticated but not beyond gray matter's comprehension. Ben quickly identified the primary regulation algorithms and began reprogramming them, his tiny fingers moving with incredible precision across the interface. Modifying the containment parameters, he reported quietly. Redirecting the freezing effect to target the device itself rather than projecting outward. When activated, it should create a localized implosion that neutralizes the technology without damaging the surrounding infrastructure. Time is up, Batman reminded him tersely. Transform and extract now. Just 15 more seconds, Ben pleaded, finishing the critical modifications. Almost done. A sudden explosion rocked the platform as Batman deployed high-impact devices against a group of knights who had attempted to flank him. The distraction was enough for one of the technicians to notice movement near the control junction. Intruder at the primary controls, the technician shouted, pointing directly at Ben. So much for stealth, Ben muttered, quickly finalizing the last command sequence. Modifications complete. The device is sabotaged. He reached for the Omnitrix symbol on his back, ready to transform to XLR-8 as instructed, when a massive tremor shook the entire subway station. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling as support structures groaned under some immense pressure. What was that? Nightwing demanded over the comm. Energy surge detected above the station. Gwen reported from the command van. It's massive. Ben knew instantly what it meant. Vilgax is here. That was his teleportation technology, he's arriving directly above us. As if to confirm his assessment, a section of the subway ceiling collapsed inward, rubble crashing onto the platform as a massive figure descended through the newly created hole, Vilgax, even more imposing than during their first encounter, his armor enhanced and weapons primed. The trap is sprung, the warlord announced, red eyes scanning the chaos until they locked onto Ben's tiny gray matter form. There you are, child. Change of plans, Ben reported urgently. Going XLR-8 now. He slapped the Omnitrix symbol, transforming in a flash of green light into the velociraptor-like speedster. With XLR-8's incredible velocity, he dodged Vilgax's initial grab and raced toward Batman's position. The freeze device is sabotaged, he called out as he joined his mentor. It'll self-destruct if they try to activate it. Batman nodded once, already assessing the new threat presented by Vilgax's arrival. Nightwing, Extraction Protocol Beta. Ben, stay with me. Vilgax advanced toward them, knights scrambling out of his way, some in deference, others in fear as they realized the true nature of their master. Your resistance is futile, Vilgax announced. I have studied your techniques since our last encounter. Your advantages are neutralized. To demonstrate, he activated a device on his armor that sent out a pulse of energy. Instantly, Ben felt the Omnitrix respond, its timing function accelerating rapidly. My transformation, he cried as the Omnitrix symbol began blinking red much faster than normal. He's forcing it to time out. Within seconds, the red light enveloped him, reverting him to human form far earlier than the usual 10-minute limit. Ben stumbled, suddenly vulnerable without his alien abilities. Batman immediately moved to shield him, throwing specialized batarangs at Vilgax that exploded into a titanium-based restraining compound, one of the new countermeasures they developed specifically for the warlord. Vilgax merely laughed as the compound hardened around his limbs, flexing his massive muscles to shatter it effortlessly. Your preparations are inadequate, Batman. I have faced technologies thousands of years beyond Earth's capabilities. Maybe, Nightwing called from a flanking position, but have you faced these? He threw what appeared to be standard Eskrima sticks, but when they struck Vilgax, they adhered to his armor and began emitting a high-frequency vibration that visibly disturbed the warlord's equilibrium. Plumber technology, Vilgax snarled, recognizing the devices. Tennyson's influence, no doubt. He ripped the devices from his armor, crushing them in his massive hand, but the momentary distraction allowed Batman to deploy a grapple line that wrapped around Ben's waist, pulling him up to a higher position away from Vilgax's immediate reach. Status report, Batman demanded as Ben joined him on a maintenance catwalk. Omnitrix functionality. Ben checked the device, which was flashing between red and green as it struggled to reset after Vilgax's interference. Destabilized. I can't transform again until it recalibrates. How long? Unknown, Ben admitted. This is new territory. Below them, chaos reigned as knights who had been loyal to the Freeze mission realized their leadership had been compromised. Driscoll confronted one of Vilgax's human agents, demanding explanations, while others fled or took sides in the growing internal conflict. Vilgax ignored the human squabbles, focused entirely on tracking Ben's position. Your Earth allies cannot save you, child, he called up to the catwalk. Surrender the Omnitrix now, and I will spare this city from destruction. Don't believe him, Batman advised quietly. Tactical retreat is our priority now. Ben nodded, but before they could move, Vilgax demonstrated another new capability. The armor on his forearm reconfigured into what appeared to be a projectile weapon, which he aimed directly at the catwalk supports. Incoming! Batman warned, pushing Ben aside as Vilgax fired. The energy blast severed the catwalk connections, sending the structure plummeting toward the platform below. Batman fired his grapple to an overhead beam, catching Ben's arm as they fell, but the sudden stop wrenched Ben's shoulder painfully and nearly broke Batman's grip. They swung to a safe landing among the debris of the collapsing subway station, but now found themselves on the main platform with Vilgax between them and the nearest exit. Options? Ben asked tersely, nursing his injured shoulder while checking the Omnitrix again, still cycling between red and green. Distraction protocol, Batman replied, reaching for specific compartments in his utility belt. When I engage Vilgax directly, you circle around to the eastern tunnel exit. Nightwing will cover your extraction. I'm not leaving you to face him alone. Ben protested. This isn't a debate, Batman countered firmly. Without transformation capabilities, you're his primary target and at maximum vulnerability. Before Ben could argue further, Vilgax launched another attack, this one targeting the platform itself. The concrete cracked under the impact of his energy weapon, forcing Batman and Ben to separate as they dodged falling debris. Go! Batman ordered, throwing multiple devices at Vilgax that exploded into blinding light and disorienting sound, another countermeasure they developed based on their previous encounter. Vilgax roared in anger as his senses were temporarily overloaded, giving Batman an opening to engage directly with specialized gauntlets designed to counter the Warlord's strength. Meanwhile, Ben reluctantly began making his way toward the eastern tunnel, staying low and using the chaos for cover. He had nearly reached the tunnel entrance when a familiar voice called out from nearby. The boy! Stop him! Ben turned to see one of Vilgax's human agents, the knight who had been operating the communication array, pointing directly at him while shouting orders to other knights. 3 armored figures moved to intercept Ben's escape route. Without the Omnitrix's transformations, Ben was forced to rely on the combat training Bruce had drilled into him over the past year. As the first knight lunged toward him, Ben ducked under the attack and used the man's momentum against him, a perfect application of the technique Bruce had made him practice hundreds of times. The knight crashed into equipment, his armor clanging loudly against metal pipes. The second came in more cautiously, sword transformed into some kind of energy blade that hummed menacingly. Batman! Ben called out, dodging the energy blade by millimeters. I could use some backup here. But Batman was fully engaged with Vilgax, using every technique and device in his arsenal just to stay ahead of the Warlord's overwhelming power. Nightwing was visible on the other side of the platform, fighting his way through a group of knights to reach Ben's position. Ben was on his own for now. Drawing the collapsible staff Bruce had included in his equipment, Ben extended it to full length and used it to parry the next attack, the reinforced material somehow withstanding the energy blade's cut. Bruce's specialized equipment once again proving its worth. Not bad for a kid without his watch working, Ben taunted, falling into the rhythm of combat Bruce had taught him, use opponents' expectations against them, stay mobile, identify vulnerabilities. The knights clearly expected him to be helpless without alien transformations, which gave Ben a momentary advantage of surprise as he demonstrated very human but highly effective combat skills. He disabled the second knight with a precisely aimed strike to a joint in the armor, another technique from Batman's training. The third knight, however, came prepared with ranged weapons, some kind of energy projector built into his gauntlet. The blast caught Ben in the side, sending him sprawling across the platform, pain lancing through his ribs. "Surrender, boy," the knight demanded, advancing with weapon ready. "Lord Vilgax wants you alive, but not necessarily unharmed." Ben struggled to his feet, wincing at the pain but refusing to give up. The Omnitrix on his wrist continued its erratic cycling, not yet ready for transformation. He needed more time. Suddenly, a blur of motion struck the knight from behind, Nightwing, having finally broken through to reach Ben. "You okay, kid?" he asked, helping Ben steady himself. "Been better," Ben admitted, hand pressed to his injured side. "But I'll live." "Good, because we need to move now." Nightwing glanced toward the center of the platform where Batman and Vilgax continued their battle, an uneven match that Batman was sustaining through sheer skill and tactical brilliance rather than matching power. "What about Bruce?" Ben asked, concern evident in his voice. "He can handle himself," Nightwing assured him, though his own expression betrayed similar worry. "The priority is getting you clear before." He was interrupted by a massive crash as Batman was finally caught by one of Vilgax's strikes, the impact sending him hurtling into a support column with enough force to crack the concrete. Batman slumped to the ground, momentarily stunned by the blow. "No!" Ben shouted, instinctively moving toward his fallen mentor. "Ben, don't!" Nightwing grabbed his arm, trying to hold him back. "That's exactly what Vilgax wants." But Ben pulled free, determination overriding caution. "I'm not leaving him." He sprinted across the platform toward Batman, ignoring the pain in his side and the danger of Vilgax's attention. The warlord turned, a triumphant expression crossing his alien features as he saw Ben approaching. "The child comes willingly," Vilgax observed with satisfaction. "Your misplaced loyalty will be your downfall." Ben reached Batman, who was already struggling to rise despite the devastating impact he'd absorbed. "Bruce! Are you okay?" "Get back!" Batman managed, his voice strained but commanding. "That's an order." "Not happening," Ben replied firmly, positioning himself protectively in front of his guardian. "We leave together or not at all." Vilgax laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the crumbling subway station. "How touching. The human child protects his mentor." He raised his weapon, aiming directly at them. "A futile gesture, but one I will remember after I claim the Omnitrix." The weapon began to charge, energy building to devastating levels. Ben stood his ground, mind racing for a solution. The Omnitrix remained unpredictable, still fluctuating between red and green as it fought Vilgax's disruption technology. In that moment, facing death or capture with Batman injured behind him, something crystallized in Ben's mind, a clarity of purpose and determination that transcended fear. This past year with Bruce had taught him that being a hero wasn't about the powers or the transformations. It was about standing up when others couldn't, about making the hard choices when necessary. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, still cycling erratically, and made a decision. Closing his eyes briefly, he focused every ounce of his will on the device, somehow feeling a connection deeper than the physical bond between the alien technology and his wrist. "I need you," he whispered to it. "Not for me. For him. For all of them." Whether by coincidence, alien technology responding to extreme emotional states, or something more profound, the Omnitrix suddenly stabilized, its face glowing a steady green. Ben didn't hesitate. He activated the dial, cycling rapidly to a form he'd only used once before in controlled training, a crystalline alien Bruce had helped him name Diamond Head for its diamond-hard body capable of withstanding extreme force. Green light enveloped him just as Vilgax fired his weapon. The energy blast struck Ben directly, but instead of finding vulnerable human flesh, it impacted the newly transformed Diamond Head, whose crystalline body absorbed and refracted the blast in multiple directions. Impossible. Vilgax snarled. The Omnitrix should be disabled. Guess it likes me better than you, Ben replied in Diamond Head's deeper voice, standing protectively over Batman. Now, let's try this again. With precise control born from months of training, Ben formed his crystalline arms into shields, creating a protective barrier around Batman while Nightwing used the distraction to reach their position. Get him clear, Ben instructed Nightwing, nodding toward Batman. I'll hold Vilgax off. Ben, no, Batman started to protest, but Nightwing was already moving to support him. He knows what he's doing, Bruce, Nightwing assured him. Trust him. Ben faced Vilgax directly, Diamond Head's crystalline body glittering under the emergency lights of the deteriorating subway station. Just you and me now, Vilgax. No more targeting injured teammates. The warlord studied him with narrowed eyes. Your transformation should not be possible after my disruption pulse. The Omnitrix continues to exceed expected parameters in your possession. Maybe it knows a worthy wielder when it finds one, Ben suggested, forming crystal projectiles that he launched at Vilgax in rapid succession. The shards struck with precision, targeting joints and exposed areas in the alien's armor. Vilgax blocked most with incredible speed but couldn't deflect them all. Several penetrated weak points, drawing roars of pain and rage. You've improved your combat application since our last encounter, he acknowledged, advancing despite the injuries. But you remain an amateur wielding power beyond your comprehension. Maybe, Ben agreed, continuing his strategic attacks while maneuvering to keep Vilgax's attention away from the others. But this amateur has something you don't. And what might that be? Vilgax asked dismissively. A team. On cue, a massive explosion rocked the facility. Max Tennyson had entered the fight, deploying plumber technology from the command van to breach the subway defenses from another angle. The blast temporarily disoriented Vilgax, giving Ben an opening to press his advantage. He channeled everything Batman had taught him about combat strategy, combined with Diamond Head's unique abilities. Instead of trying to match Vilgax's raw power, a losing proposition even with alien transformation, Ben fought smarter, creating crystal structures that limited the warlord's mobility while attacking from multiple angles. Your resistance is impressive but futile, Vilgax declared, smashing through a crystal barrier Ben had created. I have conquered worlds, child. What hope do you have? Those worlds didn't have me, Ben shot back, creating a crystal slide that let him maneuver rapidly around Vilgax's position. Or Batman. Or the Tennysons. As they fought, Ben was acutely aware of Batman and Nightwing retreating toward the extraction point, Max's diversionary tactics providing crucial cover. The freeze device remained sabotaged, the Forever Knights in disarray as their base collapsed around them. All Ben needed to do was keep Vilgax occupied long enough for everyone to reach safety. It wasn't about winning, it was about protecting his family. Vilgax seemed to recognize Ben's strategy. You fight merely to delay, he observed, smashing aside another crystal construct. To allow your companions to escape. Maybe I just enjoy your sparkling personality, Ben quipped, dodging a devastating blow that shattered concrete where he'd stood moments before. The warlord's eyes narrowed. Your humor masks fear, child. I can sense it. Being afraid and running away aren't the same thing, Ben replied, suddenly serious as he launched a barrage of crystal shards that forced Vilgax back several steps. Batman taught me that. Something like grudging respect flickered in Vilgax's red eyes. The human has trained you well. In time, you might have become a worthy opponent. I already am, Ben countered, forming his arm into a massive crystal hammer that he swung with perfect timing, catching Vilgax off guard and landing a solid hit that actually staggered the warlord. The blow seemed to shift something in Vilgax's approach. His expression darkened as he touched a control on his armor. Enough games. The Omnitrix will be mine now. Energy pulsed from the warlord's armor, and Ben felt the Omnitrix respond, not timing out as before, but something more alarming. The crystal of his diamond head form began to fluctuate, parts of his body briefly shifting toward other alien forms before stabilizing again. What are you doing? Ben demanded, fighting to maintain control of his transformation. Initiating remote recalibration, Vilgax explained with cold satisfaction. If I cannot disable the Omnitrix, I will reset it, with you trapped between forms. Ben felt the transformation destabilizing further, pain lancing through his body as his DNA was pulled in multiple directions simultaneously. This wasn't like the normal transformation process, this was wrong, dangerous. Ben. Max's voice came through his comm, get out of there now. The readings we're getting from the Omnitrix are critical. But Ben couldn't move, caught in Vilgax's technological trap as the warlord advanced toward him with confidence. The process is irreversible without the master control, Vilgax stated. Soon your DNA will be too scrambled to maintain coherent form, and the Omnitrix will emergency detach to preserve itself. Through the pain and disorientation, Ben focused on the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, the one constant through all his transformations. Batman had theorized it served as an anchor point, the interface between the device's systems and whatever alien form Ben currently occupied. If Vilgax was trying to force a reset through that connection, perhaps Ben could counter it by directly interfacing with the symbol itself. With tremendous effort, Ben managed to form one crystalline hand into a fine point, which he drove directly into the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Instead of damaging it, his crystalline structure merged with the symbol, creating a direct connection to the device's core functions. What are you doing? Vilgax demanded, genuine alarm in his voice for the first time. Ben didn't respond, focusing entirely on the connection he'd established. Through it, he could sense the Omnitrix's systems fighting against Vilgax's intrusion, trying to maintain stability. Ben added his own will to that struggle, refusing to surrender control. Energy coursed through him, painful but clarifying. For a brief moment, Ben felt connected to something vast and complex beyond his full comprehension, the true nature of the Omnitrix, not just as a transformation device but as something with purpose, with intent of its own. The symbol on his chest flashed blindingly bright, and Ben felt the Omnitrix respond to his desperate gambit. Instead of continuing its destabilization, it suddenly executed a controlled transformation, shifting him from Diamond Head to XLR-8 in a precise, deliberate change. Impossible. Vilgax snarled, adjusting his device to track the new form. But Ben didn't stop there. Using his newfound connection, he triggered another transformation, this time to Heat Blast. Then another to Forearms. Then Wildvine, Gray Matter, Upgrade, Ripjaws, Ghost Freak, and finally a 10th alien he'd never accessed before, a strange, mummy-like creature wrapped in bandages with enhanced strength and flexibility. Each transformation lasted only seconds, too brief for Vilgax's technology to lock onto and disrupt. The rapid sequence overwhelmed the warlord's systems, causing his armor to spark and malfunction as it tried to track the constantly changing signal. With a final surge of effort, Ben reverted to human form, the Omnitrix glowing steadily green on his wrist, reset and stabilized by the unprecedented transformation sequence. Vilgax's device smoked and sputtered, parts of his armor going dark as systems overloaded. "What did you do?" he demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. Ben stood tall despite his exhaustion, facing the warlord with newfound confidence. "I listened to the Omnitrix. Turns out, it doesn't want to be with you any more than I want to give it up." Before Vilgax could respond, a familiar voice called from nearby. "Ben." Now. Batman had returned, positioning himself on a higher level with what appeared to be one of Max's plumber weapons, significantly larger than anything in his standard arsenal. Ben didn't hesitate. He dove clear as Batman fired the weapon. "Please take the story into the next chapter." The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.